Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sunday Matinee. I'm your host, Ben Stahl. We are on episode 44, and we are about to get into the spoiler cast of madness. But before we do that, I need to introduce the panel. So, returning for the first time since I believe Spider-Man spoiler cast.
Oh, wow.
Jalen Green, welcome back.
Woo! Hey, it's good to be back. We got some thoughts about this one for sure.
And joining me again for the first time since the Batman spoiler cast is Travis Martinez. Travis, welcome back.
Good to be back.
And I just want to give a shout out to that episode. The Batman has been available to stream now on HBO Max for, I think about a month at this point. So if you haven't seen the Batman yet, check it on HBO Max, and then check out that spoiler cast because we had a lot of fun talking about the Batman. But DC is not something we're talking about today. No. But before we even get to anything else, got a couple news bits here, and I want to go through them really quickly because there's potentially a lot to unpack here with Doctor Strange. So in a fun bit of news that goes all the way back to a couple episodes we did last year in Godzilla, Dan Stevens has joined the cast of the Godzilla vs. Kong sequel, which still doesn't have a title and doesn't officially have a director, but it exists. And the rumor has it it's going to be Son of Kong. That's all we know. So, yeah, we'll see what happens when that comes out.
It was such a fun movie. So Godzilla vs. So much fun.
Yep.
Oh,
that movie knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I can't tell. Did you think it was fun?
It was so much fun.
In other sequel news, this one is coming much, much later than most sequels nowadays. This is Spinal Tap is getting a sequel with director Rob Reiner returning along with actors Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, and Harry Shearer. It's set to release in, I believe, 2024 for the 40th anniversary of the original, which is wild. And I now need to see the first one because that's one of those movies where it's like, you hear about it all your life, and it's like, how have I missed this? So, have either of you seen it?
I have. Yeah, it's great.
It's also one of those. It's one of those films I've always wanted to. I've always loved like mockumentaries like that, but like I just never got around to it.
Yeah, it's well worth checking out, especially if you love that style of that mockumentary style. So it's
I do know of the amp scope to 11 scene because that's pretty funny and iconic.
Yes.
These amp scope to 11, and they're just the three of them are just magic. And Rob Reiner, just it's a great film.
So that'll be interesting to do that sort of legacy sequel thing that I think I would say ever since The Force Awakens came out, legacy sequels have been a big deal now.
Ghostbusters.
And finally, yep, that's a big one too. Finally, Christopher Walken has joined the cast of Dune Part 2 as Emperor Shaddam IV. I mean, how can I not address this? It's Christopher Walken. He's an incredible specimen of humanity. And for him to join, this huge film it's a pretty big deal. I mean, this cast is already just incredible. And I still haven't seen the first one. And now, just like this is Spinal Tap, it's now I must see so I can catch Christopher Walken coming up.
Wow.
So yeah.
Best film of 2021, Dune Part 1.
Well, it's on HBO, so I shouldn't have too much of a problem. So, what have we been watching in the last week? So I know some of us have been busy. Life happens. I watched The Suicide Squad for the first time since I saw it in theaters. Just such a wonderful, wonderful film, and easily one of the better DC films in the last couple of years. Just as fun at home, and I think my favorite scene, because it's just such a James Gunn scene, is when Harley breaks herself out of prison. Just incredible use of lighting and color and cinematography in that scene. So yeah, there's that. And I started rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series. Never ever again touching the live action film, because I saw that once when it was in theaters, never again. But every now and then that nostalgia beast just bites me, and it's like, yeah, I got to watch this again. And it's not a long watch, so should be done with it before the week is out. Jalen, have you been watching anything fun this week?
Yeah, give another HBO Max shout out to Our Flag Means Death. Just watched that. Very easy binge, phenomenal show. And last night I finished the last 2 episodes of Apple TV's latest masterpiece, Severance.
Woo!
Yeah, do not watch that show before bed. You will have not very good dreams. Do not watch Severance before bed. Watch Severance. It's great. Just not before bed.
I'm so excited because I do have a Severance episode planned, but I'm working around a very specific person who worked on the show, and he's very busy right now. I can't imagine why he would be.
Would not, yeah. Don't have no idea why, and continue being busy. That person, because yeah, I can't wait for season 2. Wow.
Yeah. And this is I think the second time in the last 2 weeks that Our Flag Means Death has been brought up. I've been watching that as well. Didn't watch any episodes this last week, but I think I'm on, I can't remember what episode number it is, but I just watched the one about passive aggression.
Okay. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Such a good show. Such a good show. With one of the best relationships this side of Patrick and David on Schitt's Creek. It's just, yeah, phenomenal show.
Yeah, it's a good one. Travis, have you had any time to watch anything this week? I know you've been a busy boy.
Yes, a few things. Mostly just rewatches, not much new. I also rewatched an old James Gunn film that I love that I haven't seen in years. I rewatched Slither. Still a really good movie.
Yes.
Holds up really well to this day. Super fun and all that. I rewatched an old childhood, or at least a few episodes of Power Rangers, because I work for this company on the side where I dress up as Power Ranger for events and all that. So I figured rewatch some episodes, and you know, haven't watched a lot lately, but like rewatching them as an adult, I'm like, wow, I liked this growing up. I still like it, but it's so cheesy and all that. But one thing I did watch that was new, I checked out this new John Wayne Gacy documentary on Netflix. Very interesting piece. I really enjoy like getting into the minds of stuff like that.
Nice.
Awesome. I definitely know where you're coming from with the Power Rangers. They weren't my thing, but anytime I go back to watch the older Godzilla movies, it's like, yeah, I really like this, but man, it's cheesy as heck.
It's just always funny, like when you can tell, like especially with like some of the Godzilla films when they brought them to America, Power Rangers was similar. You can tell what footage was Japanese and which one's American. Like it's not hard to tell at all. And as a kid, you don't notice, but as an adult, you're just like, all right, Japanese, American, Japanese, American, American, Japanese with the footage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ultraman was one of my favorites, and it's got the same thing to it as well. Just this wonderful charm about it.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, Jalen, before we move on here, really quickly, did you know there is a new Ultraman movie out in Japan now?
Really? I did not know that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Check that out.
Following in the success of Shin Godzilla, they have released Shin Ultraman.
Oh, wow.
So, and now there's a Twitter debate on who would win in a fight. I'm not going to get into that fight because Twitter fights are they're the worst in the world.
Yeah.
Twitter is
Nobody
a blessing and a
wins.
curse. Yeah.
Nobody wins on those. Ultraman would be a great addition to Godzilla v Kong. Those, if anybody's important listening, Warner Bros. Come on, Warner Bros.
Yeah. All right. We have one more thing to talk about before we get into Doctor Strange, just because I thought this was a really interesting video that's been going around. So there's a video of Ethan Hawke that's been going around Facebook and Twitter, and he's basically talking about how we really need to stop thinking about superhero films as this lower form of art. But at the same time, younger generations also need to understand that we're so inundated with superhero films nowadays and superhero content on television that we sometimes do need to stop and look and check our local theater listings and realize there's much more out there to be seen. We don't get a lot of variety anymore, but I thought it was really refreshing to see Ethan Hawke, this high prestige actor who literally just came off of doing Moon Knight, say that he has a lot of respect for superhero movies. When you do have a lot of those types of actors, these Academy Award winning actors, you have Martin Scorsese, who's always on his soapbox about them, saying that they're destroying cinema. And I don't think they are. I just think that and he makes a great point about how nowadays we make everything a competition. Box office has become a greater metric for success in the minds of audiences nowadays than the quality of a film. I still think right now that Everything Everywhere All at Once is the best film I've seen this year, and that film has maybe made 50 million in the US. And and some films don't have to make Marvel money. But yeah, I just think it's a great take on it. And if you are able to catch that video, it's only about a minute long. I think it's just a great take, because we do have this sort of divide in Hollywood of the people who think superhero movies are great and superhero movies are garbage. I just think there's a great middle ground to be had there. Jalen, you got to watch the video. What do you think?
I think he raised a great point about how everything is turned into a competition. And and he's absolutely right. Like in any ads for movies, the first two things you hear about are their box office and the Rotten Tomatoes score. Certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Which, I mean, if you know what Rotten Tomatoes is, yes, that's a good thing. But still, you're just like, what is that? A tomato? It's a Rotten Tomato. What? If you're just like, Joe from Nebraska, maybe you don't know what Rotten Tomatoes is. You're like, what does that have to do with anything? But it's a very valid point. And honestly, I need to be better about seeking out non-superhero related content in a movie theater. Unfortunately, that's a lot of what I've seen recently in a movie theater. And I think it's a great call to arms to do more of that, to go seek out the things you wouldn't normally see in a theater, to go see them in a theater. And I think we all need to do more of that. I know I need to do that with everything. I still haven't seen Everything Everywhere All at Once or Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. So it was a good call to arms for me as a movie lover.
And I will state too that I'm not trying to get people to go see something they're absolutely not interested in. If there's a high concept science fiction film out there and science fiction just isn't your thing, don't go see something you feel like you're going to be wasting your time seeing from the get-go. For me, that's going to be the new Minions movie. There's no way in heck I'm going to go see that. But
I don't watch any Illumination movie.
I tried once and I fell asleep.
More power to you. And I also believe that it's genuinely okay, and this is another problem on Twitter. It's genuinely okay to let people love the movies they love and to not love the movies that they don't love. So yeah, but if you're out there and you're thinking, my goodness, there's not a lot of original stuff going on in theaters, go see something like Everywhere Everything Everywhere. Go see The Northman, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Like there's been all kinds of great non-superhero content coming out this year. It's just harder to, it may be a little bit harder to access because they'll have less show times for sure. But
Yeah.
I think, you know, if it's something you really want to see, it's worth the effort usually. All right. So it is time to jump into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the first Marvel film to come out this year, the first since Spider-Man No Way Home, and the second sort of Marvel story to come out since after Disney Plus's Moon Knight, literally right after Disney Plus's Moon Knight. So we've had a lot of Marvel coming out recently. So Doctor Strange, we're literally coming off of Spider-Man No Way Home. He has cast a spell to close up the cracks in the multiverse and to make the entire world forget Peter Parker. And now we jump pretty much right into his story. So, Travis, what were your initial reactions, your thoughts about it? What worked for you, what didn't? And did you have favorite characters or moments or themes going into this movie?
Yes. So my initial reaction is like, I enjoy it. It's only a good movie, but I will admit, I think what really didn't work for me is some of the writing. There's some things that didn't really work, all of that. I will say, like, Doctor Strange definitely was a highlight for me. He's never been one of my favorites in the MCU, mainly because he hasn't had a solo film since 2016, and yet has had 3 other appearances, and the rest, which is mainly playing a side character in those films. So it's nice to actually get another solo Doctor Strange movie to develop his character. So yeah, I really enjoy that, and I do like the themes of like that Doctor Strange has to learn, like, of not being in control, and because like that's always a nice thing to learn about, is, you know, like, you could be the most powerful person, but, you know, like, you can't always be, you know, like, doing everything yourself. Like, you know, the themes of him having to, you know, say he can't be with Christine, the themes of like he can't stop the villain himself and all that. Like, so yeah, I just felt like Doctor Strange really worked in this for me. Some other stuff that didn't work, but we're gonna talk about that later. But yeah, overall good. Had some moments that didn't work for me, but overall was a really fun movie. Sam Raimi really brought his style to the MCU with this one.
Jalen, what are your initial reactions to Doctor Strange?
Oh, 10-4 agree that Sam Raimi brought the Sam Raimi to this, and it was so awesome to see. It was a phenomenally acted movie. Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange might be my favorite currently active performance in the MCU. Proves it again, is just one of the world's greatest actors. Wong is the best. It's just a phenomenally acted movie. It's a lot of fun. There's just a couple giant plot holes in this that I feel like if there was like a 3-hour version of this movie, I feel like a 3-hour version of this movie could exist. I would happily watch it. But yeah, I just feel like there's a couple plot holes that I do think bog this movie down a little bit. But it's great. Definitely mid-tier Marvel, for sure.
So my very first reaction when I saw this movie, and I've seen it twice now, my first reaction was, this is such a Ben movie. I've been waiting for Marvel to do a horror film, and they touched on some elements of horror in Moon Knight in a couple of episodes, which was a lot of fun. But they really leaned into it this time around. And yes, I absolutely love just the Sam Raimi-ness of it all. Just the fight with the Gargantos monster, which Marvel fans would probably say, hey, it's Shumagorath, but you can't call him that because there are legal things going on with the name. So the giant squid monster at the beginning, Gargantos, where he literally pulls his eye out. It's like, yep, that's vintage Raimi right there. Absolutely love that. Just the makeup effects on Zombie Strange was like, that looks like literally something out of a Sam Raimi film. The demons that, he controls and that attack Christine, all the the real close-up shots of people's faces and people screaming. It's like, yep, this is exactly what I want out of a Sam Raimi movie. And I love the use of magic, particularly at the beginning with that same fight, like where he literally just shoots his hands out and does things that you haven't seen him do yet in these movies. And it's like, finally, this is what we wanted. We got a taste of that in Infinity War with his little mini fight with Thanos, where he does all these crazy things. And I think my favorite magic moment is versus Sinister Strange, where they have the duel with the music notes.
Yes.
And I was like, some people are going to say, this is stupid. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's like, no, this is something that's ripped out of a comic book right here.
Yeah.
This is something that's, something that's been missing from the more straightforward, grounded MCU films that don't have magic or Thor in them. The more fantastical stuff. Like, you won't see in an Iron Man or a Captain America film, but it worked perfectly here. They touched on a lot of ideas that I like. I love the idea that dreams are just our multiversal selves, and we're getting a glimpse into their lives. And that throwaway line from Wong about how, once he's running from something in his underwear, it's like, yeah, that's just you. I love that they sort of repeat the ending of the first film, where Doctor Strange doesn't resort to physical combat to defeat his foe. He uses his wits to defeat Wanda. I will say there's a downside to that when I get to that. I really like Xochitl Gomez as America Chavez. I thought she was a really fun character. But, and we're getting into some of the stuff I didn't like, I agree with some of the criticisms that she is basically the MacGuffin of the film, and it's rough. Yeah. They had the same problem in Thor: The Dark World with Natalie Portman when she becomes the Ether, and her sole purpose in the movie now is just to, not be caught. I think they could have been a lot more with her, because I really do think she puts in a really fun performance. And, we're living in an era, a post Star Wars prequels era, where it's like, oh man, kid actors, I don't know. It's hit and miss with them. But I really think that she did a good job, and I look forward to seeing what she's going to bring to the character in the future.
Yeah.
But my biggest problem with the film, and this is a huge one that I really sad to sit on after I saw it the second time, was I can't stand what they did to Wanda. After WandaVision, it felt like they took all of her development from that film and just, clicked it and threw it in the recycle bin and pulled out anything that they could think of that was useful for this particular story. Because, there's so much debate about this one on social media, and I went back and watched that final scene in WandaVision again, where she's, astral projecting with the Darkhold and, trying to learn new spells. And she hears her kids screaming, "Help me, help me." And that's not the vibe I get from her in this film. She's not going into the multiverse to save her boys. Her boys aren't in trouble. Wherever her boys are in the multiverse, whichever universe it is, they're fine with their actual mother. So it's really, it was really rough. And it's a shame, because I do think that Elizabeth Olsen gives an absolute knockout performance.
So good.
As Wanda.
Yeah.
So good.
Like, she's doing so well with what she's got, but what she's got is, again, it's just throwing it all away. And you could argue, well, the Darkhold has corrupted her. And it's like, okay, sure, but they didn't lean into that much at all. Particularly when they destroy the Darkhold, and you think, okay, is that it? That should do it, right? And it doesn't. She just keeps going on. And I feel like they told this story already in Shang-Chi, but they told it in a much better way, where when Wu is clearly being tempted, where he's not necessarily doing it for the sake of evil. He's tempted by what he really believes is the voice of his wife. Whereas Wanda is just flat out gone completely batshit capital V villain. And it's also not, and we'll get to this later, it is not at all what was advertised in the trailers. Not even close. And I get that they try to, not unveil every single secret of the film. But this is a twist that happens less than 30 minutes in. It's not like we go halfway into this movie and then suddenly Wanda's the villain. Like, the twist happens so fast. Mm-hmm. It's just frustrating. So those are my initial thoughts. And also, because the story is so focused on Wanda, because it is a WandaVision 2, basically, I do agree that Benedict gives a great performance, but his character development takes a back seat in this film so much to what's going on with Wanda. There's some great moments and where they explore that theme of "Are you happy?" and his scene in Earth, I think it's 838, with the Illuminati, where they look at him as this big threat. It's really hard to take that seriously because we as the audience know he's the protagonist. He's not going to turn evil. And we have the capital V villain coming right at them. The trailer just really made it seem like it was going to be a Strange versus many Stranges, and Wanda was going to be that character who's helping him get through the multiverse. Like, I'm not here to tell Marvel what they're supposed to do with their storytelling. I'm just saying that this what they did with Wanda is just not going to work with a lot of people. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are going to be upset about this.
Yeah.
And the fact that she, they pull the whole, "Oh, I was so bad and now I have to destroy myself." It was the same ending as Godzilla King of the Monsters, where Vera Farmiga's character is like, "Oh, I was with the bad guys, so I'm going to drive off and distract Ghidra here and he's going to kill me." And it's like, was that necessary?
It's the end of it. It's the end of Eternals.
Yeah.
Icarus flies into the sun because he's like, "Oh, I was bad, Rob Stark."
Yes. And we didn't do a spoiler cast for that, but I think I had a chat with someone that's like, I was expecting Icarus to just fly off and find himself.
Yeah.
At the end of that film. Yeah. Like, I think that would have been a fine ending. Like, I think I don't know. I can't say for sure if Wanda's dead. She's probably not. But like, where does she go from here at this point? Like, she's got in the eyes of everyone else in the MCU, she's going to have to do a lot of soul searching before she's a hero again.
Yeah, I got some opinions on Wanda in this film, like a lot.
Feel free to share them now, because I'm done ranting.
Yeah, well, it's like, I definitely agree. It came out of nowhere how she just became a villain, and people could be it's like you said, people can try to defend it, be like, "Oh, it was the Darkhold," but like, the Darkhold was really amplifying her own wants and desires. The film clearly establishes. It's not like the Darkhold is like, "Hey, I want you to go get your children for some other nefarious thing." No, like, this is just Wanda with her. Even though I felt like at the end of WandaVision, she kind of, what she learned at the end is that she can't have that life with Vision and her kids anymore. So it just kind of, I understand grief, like, will make you want to do a lot of these things, but like, Wanda, I felt like was just irredeemable with a lot of the things she was doing. Like, she murdered so many people in this film, so many good people, sorcerers, the Illuminati and all that. I'm just like, I'm sorry, like, I don't think she's really that redeemable at this point. I hate to say it because I love her, and I know, like, this is probably the most accurate she's been to the comic books, because in the comics she's always been the villain, but like, that's not the character we've been seeing throughout these films and all that. I definitely feel like they should have better explained like why she was like this. Like, maybe, like you said, say like there's a universe where her kids are in trouble, and that's their big motivation. That would be a bit more viable. But they clearly established in the film, no, they're fine in every universe. So it's just like she's just being selfish at this point. It's like I love the character, love the actress, but like this film really, I felt like did her dirty.
And now that I'm thinking about it too, it's like you talk about redemption. This also, like, it's also different from Bucky, where Bucky was brainwashed. There was clearly a scientific means of bringing Bucky back to the world. And
there's an outside source that caused him to do a lot of that.
And like, I love, good luck to whoever gets to write Wanda back into these movies. Good luck on them. Because if they want to write her back in as a hero, they're going to have they have their work cut out for them, because Wanda, and honestly, every character in the MCU could use therapy, but Wanda at this point needs therapy.
Yeah.
It's going to be so much harder for the MCU characters to forgive her than it is for them to forgive Bucky, because they're going to have to write. It's either you're going to have to just be the most gracious people in the world, or they're going to have to write in a way that she, retcon it so that it ended up really being the Darkhold. And it's like, well, yeah, that would work later, but it doesn't work right now.
Yeah. I just feel like it's also, you brought up too how they kill her off. We don't know for certain. I feel like Marvel has been doing this a lot lately, where they've been introducing way too OP characters and then writing them out of the films. Like we brought up Eternals. I think Captain Marvel was another one where they set her up to be so powerful, and then in Endgame, she's gone throughout the whole movie. Eternals, they were so powerful at the end, they get abducted by the Celestial. The Darkhold is so powerful that they had to throw in a little line like, oh, it was destroyed in every universe. And I'm just like, that's just cheap and lazy writing right there. And then WandaVision killing herself because she was so powerful. It's just like, why are you introducing these OP characters if you're just going to get rid of them by the end of the film at this point? It's like...
Yeah, because let me tell you, a really super powered Wanda down the road would be great in a fight against a Doctor Doom, or if Galactus ever shows up, they're going to need someone who can do more than just fire missiles from their armor.
She needs her dad, I think, is what she needs. She needs her dad. And
yep, and her proper dad.
Yeah, her proper dad, which this film would have been a great place to, not to discount how great it was to see Patrick Stewart's Xavier show up with the best cameo in the film. Wasn't even a cameo from a person. It was the little when you saw that chair come out, you're like, yeah. That was my favorite cameo of Doctor Strange. But that I would have swapped Xavier out of the Illuminati and had Magneto in there. I would have brought Ian McKellen in instead of Patrick Stewart, or both. But her bad guy, I'm kind of ambling here, but her role in this, her being the bad guy, was an incredible disservice. And I don't really like superhero films. I have the same problem with Age of Ultron, where superhero movies are about superheroes cleaning up their own mess, a mess that they've started. And it's just like, oh, an Avengers gone rogue. That's what this is about? It's just like, that role could have been any of 5 bad guys. Like, that could have been Mephisto. That could have been Arcade. That could have been Dr. Doom, even. That could have been 616 Carl Mordo, who's out there somewhere, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Chiwetel Ejiofor is still floating out in the Marvel universe somewhere. I don't know why he's floating. He's too good of an actor to just be floating randomly out there. But it's just, that role could have been any other parts. And you were mentioning big, like did they even watch WandaVision? I don't even think they watched WandaVision.
What I have heard, what I've read from, I've read from fairly credible sources on like IGN and whatnot that they, like, Sam Raimi was shown like, quote, important parts of like the last episode. And I'm less upset with Raimi because Raimi's not the screenwriter.
No, yeah.
I know that I'm glad that Raimi got to make the Raimi movie that he did, but I think that he was very bogged down because this is what I don't get. So they brought in Michael Waldron, who was the screenwriter for Loki, to do this. Why didn't they bring in the writing team for WandaVision?
Yeah.
Like, if this was, the Loki writing team working on this, why did it not feel like a follow-up to Loki? Like, that's one of Loki's strongest suits was actually, I think Loki was a very well-written show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they missed the mark here. So
where was this guy? Where was White Vision?
That's what I was saying the whole
time. That's my first thought coming out of this movie. I was like, where's Vision? What? Where was he? This is no.
They also just give Wanda such a narrow view of what happiness is. Like, she's in this film, she's so obsessed with reuniting with her children, and doesn't seem to care that, like, I could also reunite with Vision or my brother who I've lived my entire life with and was killed practically in front of my eyes. Real dead, not magic that I created dead. Real dead. Like,
he's Aunt May dead.
Yeah.
No Way Home spoiler, sorry, but yes. He's Aunt May dead.
I definitely agree with you that they should have brought the team in from WandaVision, even as writers, but at least consultants, like, since they wrote the show, like, get some input from them. It's like they've done a good job with having like different teams take over different characters, still like build upon what has come before. So I don't see why that wasn't the case here.
And it's so curious because I went back to the Phase 4 announcement from Comic-Con in 2019, and they announced WandaVision. It's like, okay, cool. And then they announced Multiverse of Madness, and they announced that Elizabeth Olsen was going to be in it, from the get-go. She was always a part of it, but, and this is something we'll get to later, the question may also be, is it because this film changed directors and basically changed its entire creative team?
Yeah.
That's a huge thing to consider. And
I also know that this was supposed to come out before Spider-Man No Way Home. Concept art where American Chavez was supposed to be the one to bring in Toby and Andrew Spider-Man and all that. So I'm not sure how much that also may have affected it and the trajectory of where it was supposed to go. But still, like, that still doesn't excuse like why you're not, building upon what has come before that you already intended for it to come before. WandaVision was always intended to come out as like the first Phase 4 project.
Technically, no, but at this, given all the delay, it was originally it was supposed to be Black Widow, but
Yeah.
But Falcon and Winter Soldier was actually supposed to be their first TV show. But they got their crew got hit with COVID harder because they were filming in Europe.
That's right.
But so they had to delay that. But it's not even like those two. I think also WandaVision feels like the right one to lean into because it plays like a TV show anyways. So it was a good way to warm audiences up to Marvel TV. The last thing I'm going to say before I move on is I'm not even trying to say that Wanda can't have an antagonistic role in this film with Doctor Strange. We love seeing these characters fight against each other, whether it be the little fight that Tony, Thor, and Steve have in Avengers, when Loki's messing with their heads, or whether it is Civil War, where both sides have a good argument to make and aren't trying to hurt each other, but it comes down to we have to fight. There are ways to have these superheroes, conflict with each other without resorting to turning one into a true villain. It's just a shame. And for me, for now, until I know what has happened with Wanda, they've done irreparable damage to her character. And that does hurt this film immensely because it's such a huge part of the story.
But Elizabeth Olsen is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal in this flick. Such a badly written character, performed amazingly.
Yep. And I definitely agree with you. Like, there's a way to do heroes in an antagonistic way. Like, Iron Man was kind of like the antagonist in a way in Civil War. I mean, of course, Zemo was like the big baddie, but like Iron Man filled like the antagonistic role, but like it made sense with his character and what they've set up before. I feel like they could have handled it better here. Like you said, like maybe have 616 Mordo fill most of the antagonistic role, and then at the end, like maybe she tries to, achieve some of her goals, but like that way you can build upon it, not just like first scene, oh hey, Wanda, I'm a villain, I'm evil.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, it's rough. And one last thing before we move on, and just came to my head, is maybe they should just pitch the What If team an entire season to fix this problem. What if season 3? What if we didn't screw up Wanda? All right. So when I did the preview episode for this movie, I made a couple of predictions, and now we're going to look back and see how genuinely right or genuinely wrong I was with some of these.
Ooh.
So my first prediction was that Tony Stark will appear, but he won't be played by Tom Cruise or Robert Downey Jr. Well, in a way, I was right. He did not get played by Tom Cruise or Robert Downey Jr. because Tony Stark was not in the film. The Ultron bots were a red herring. I do appreciate that aspect of it. There was a red herring. We all thought, oh, maybe Tony's back in some way, but he wasn't. My second prediction was, if Loki appears, it will only be for a very brief cameo, a la Captain America in Thor: The Dark World. Again, I was half right because he didn't appear at all. Number 3, if we see number 3, we will see the Illuminati, and it won't be the lineup from the comic books. Got that one right. And finally, Multiverse of Madness will break the Batman's opening weekend record for 2022, but it will fall short of its final domestic take. So far, I'm half right, but we don't know how that's going to end up. Because right now, we're only on the 3rd week for Doctor Strange. It's very possible that it could overtake the Batman, and we'll talk the numbers for that in a bit. So, Doctor Strange was caught up in this sort of perfect storm of hype. Like, after No Way Home, it was just sort of expected that this is going to be the next big thing. What led to this, and what can moviegoers do to temper their expectations going forward so that they're not let down in case, their big fan casting or their big predictions that they're 100% sure they're right because they posted it on Twitter? What if those don't come true? How can we temper our expectations? Jalen, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
I think there's part of it is we have to believe what Marvel tells us. because that's part of the fun is believing believing. It's like, oh well, they keep saying no, so I mean, then there's no way that this is going to happen. I mean, so many things were denied before we saw Spider-Man, and then I was pleasantly surprised when I was like, whoa. So I think tempering our own expectations would help. Trust Marvel, and Marvel we trust them. If they say this isn't going to happen, then yeah, it's not going to happen. And then when it kind of happens, you're like, oh, nice, good on you, Marvel, keeping it to the chest. And Feige we trust.
Travis, what are your thoughts about tempering our expectations going forward with some of this big stuff?
I think one thing to take into consideration, well, a couple things that really, number one, we have to remember theories are theories, and unless there are some solid evidence, you can't go in expecting anything. Like, I wanted to believe Tom Cruise was going to play a variant of Iron Man just because of the whole, it would have been a nice nod to the fact he was going to play him. You know, whether or not you would have liked that choice, I think it would have been a nice little nod. But looking back, there was no real solid evidence. Like, it was just theories. So, and they're always fun. Like, they can build up some expectations, but you also have to expect, like, you know, like, that theories are called that for a reason. Could be kind of, maybe not, who knows. But I think another thing that would really help temper is, like, people were really building this film up from No Way Home, which was just phenomenal and amazing. And people have to recognize, like, yes, Marvel overall has good quality films, but each film's going to have different levels of quality because, like, different writing teams, different directors, different visions. Some films are meant to be a big action piece or conclude something, where others are there to really tell some story, not conclude it or anything. So recognize each film is trying to tell a different part of a story. Because, like, if I go from, like, say, Avengers Endgame to the next film that was in the franchise, Far From Home, it's like there's a dip in quality. I'm not gonna lie. So, yeah, just remember theories being theories, and remember each film is going to be different from the last. So you can't expect the same thing twice in a row.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, because really it was No Way Home, and just what No Way Home did with the multiverse was like, well, surely the next multiverse film will do much more. And you're right. I think it's not just in terms of quality, but just in terms of scope and scale. Not every film is going to be as big as Endgame, or, you know, even though Spider-Man No Way Home is a very intimate Spider-Man story, it feels big because they brought in so much. But they can't do that with every single movie. And I think,
like,
go ahead.
Oh. Yeah, because, like, another big theory I know was going around, people were like, oh, you know, like, No Way Home, this film's going to be directed by Sam Raimi. Tobey Maguire is 100% going to be Spider-Man again in this film. And it's just like, you can't guarantee that because, like, you don't know where they want to take this and all of that. They can't just bring in Tobey Maguire 2 films in a row to play Spider-Man. It's like, otherwise it would kind of defeat, like, the big, like, oh my God.
Yeah, you know it makes No Way Home a little less special if they just keep bringing back Tobey.
Because, like, I brought this up in our spoiler cast for that. It's like, I would love to see Tobey Maguire appear more, but you got to save it for, like, the right occasion, like bring him back for the right event, and not just like, oh, this film deals with the multiverse, bring in Tobey Maguire. He's not Stan Lee at this point, you know, like, he can't just be popping up in every multiverse film.
Yeah, Now I think for me the quote that sort of went around that fueled so much of this fire started after that Super Bowl trailer where we first got to hear Patrick Stewart's voice and see, that the back of his head, and everyone on Twitter would say like, "Oh, if this is what they're showing in the trailer, just imagine what they've got, in the real thing." And it's like, if they don't show it in the trailer, that doesn't mean it's going to be there. Like, you're literally all you have to go on is what you can see in the trailer. Like, just because they have Professor X does not mean they're going to bring in all of the X-Men. Or, that being said, there were some surprises, and we'll get to that in a minute. So leading up to the release of Doctor Strange, we obviously had the Professor X tease and the Super Bowl trailer, but literally in a TV spot right before the movie came out, they showed the Captain Carter shield. Mm-hmm. So do you think that overall that the trailers for this film revealed a little bit too much in regards to those cameos? Because would you like to have been surprised even more?
I will definitely say that they should have kept it secret, because if you're going to show Professor X, Captain Carter, confirm that we're getting a Captain Marvel variant, have Mordo in a trailer directly state the Illuminati will now see you, I'm going in expecting they're going to play a huge significant part in the film, because if you're willing to show that much, then it's got to mean for something. But then when I finally see it and I'm expecting it, and then see that they're only there for 5 minutes for exposition and then are taken out right away, it's just like, well, why did you show that? It's like I had a similar problem when they showed Abomination in Shang-Chi in the trailers. It's just like, if he's not going to be significant, you should keep it a secret, and then let us be pleasantly surprised when it happens. You went through great lengths to keep Toby and Andrew a secret, and they were a big part of that movie. They actually played significance in like the themes and this journey of Tom Holland's Spider-Man and all that. But now you're showing too much of stuff that we want to see, but now like you're not doing anything with them.
And I completely agree. I thought they showed too much with the Doctor Strange trailers. And one of No Way Home's biggest strengths is that, Doc Ock's coming, Green Goblin's coming, Electro's coming. You're like, is that Sandman? Is that what that is? I don't know. But you don't know you're going to have 2 other Spider-Men coming. You don't know that Matt Murdock's going to show up as just a really great lawyer. And they did a much better job of keeping that a secret. And admittedly, I do fall under the I fell into the, if they showed Xavier in the trailer, then they must be saving some real big stuff for the rest of this, if that's what they're willing to show us. Mm-hmm. It's like, how they going to top bringing Xavier back for this? And they topped him by playing the little best cameo in the movie. Thanks to Danny Elfman for including that. But
yeah. And the thing about what they, them showing Xavier and Captain Carter in these trailers, and that bit of, and for the longest time too, people are like, is that Captain Marvel or is that, Iron Man variant? And it's like, no one could tell for sure. And it was like, yeah, if the thing about showing Doc Ock and, teasing Green Goblin in the No Way Home trailers was they'd been leaked. And not just by leakers, literally by Alfred Molina, was like, yeah, I'm in it. And it's like, well, at that point, it's like, well, we may as well show Doc Ock. It's like, but there was no major leak of like Professor X and Captain Carter. Like, it wasn't a huge thing. Like,
At most, they were theories, but like it wasn't confirmed, because even like with Toby and Andrew, like people were saying like, oh, they're in it, but there was no 100% proof. And even when stuff did leak, they did their best to try to cover it up. Not that great, honestly. Like, especially with that Andrew Garfield interview. Like, I've seen it. It's a Photoshop. Still the most iconic bit of advertisement for that film. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he deserved his Oscar last year partly because of all the denying of him being in Spider-Man. Like, that needed to get factored into Oscar voting right there. How good he was.
I mean, if you've seen that same interview, he literally says at the beginning he never saw it, and then 5 minutes later, like, I have seen it. So, like, he wasn't as good. Like, he couldn't keep the story straight.
So yeah, don't overhype the films you're looking forward to, everybody, because you're bound to be disappointed if you do.
It's
Temper
like
your
MJ
expectations.
said, it's just
Yeah.
like, expect disappointment and you won't be disappointed.
That's the mistake I made with this film, of course. So anyway, so we've already talked about how this film features a bait and switch by making Wanda the villain in the film very early on, which is not at all what we got from the trailers in this film. How well was that secret kept for you? Like, were you expecting to see Wanda take on that type of villain role? And how does it stack up against some of the other bait and switches they presented in other movies? And I provided some examples here for context. The Mandarin in Iron Man 3, S.H.I.E.L.D. is Hydra, the Winter Soldier. The Skrull aren't villains, Captain Marvel. Thanos dying in the first 20 minutes of Endgame. And the Celestials are actually the villains in the Eternals. And if you have any other ones you can think of off the top of your head, how does this stack up against those? Because I think those are some of the more memorable ones. And was it really a surprise the way that some of those actually were?
I felt like it wasn't as big of a surprise. There were hints in like the trailers, like especially with that line between Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch being all like, you mess with the multiverse and you become a hero. I do it and I'm the villain. But like, and there's definitely being some little like shots and like stuff like that, like the clouds coming towards
Camartage.
Yeah, Camartage. I couldn't think of the name of it for a sec. Like looking like it could be from Scarlet Witch. So it wasn't as big a surprise because like in a lot of those other like twists that you mentioned and even a lot of others, like they keep it very tightly lit. Like in the Endgame trailers, like all they ever log in a few shots here and there that like go in with like no expectation. Whereas this, there was a little bit of hints, but like the twist is more like how big of a villain she was, not that she was a villain. I feel like because like again, like I said, like when the first scene in the whole thing is like, "Oop, I'm a villain." Tee-hee. It's just like, okay, this comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I think a huge difference between that is literally, like you just said, it happens at the beginning. All those other examples that I provided, they come anywhere from halfway to close to the end of the film. And they literally, in some cases, they literally just play with our expectations of what we know from the comic books. Like the Mandarin is just an actor. Like that was seriously what's Shane Black, directing that film, just deliberately messing with the audience. Hydra being in S.H.I.E.L.D. the whole time was a great touch. And the Skrull not being the villains in Captain Marvel was like, whoa, wait, that's a huge twist. We are absolutely always expecting the Skrulls to be the villains because it's just what they do. And yeah, like once Thanos died in the first 20 minutes of Endgame, it really was like, wait, what about all that footage in the trailer of Thanos? Like, yeah. Surely this can't be it. And thankfully it wasn't. But like, yeah. Like, and I guess Endgame does happen in the first 20 minutes, but it comes with this beautiful payoff that we get to fight him again at the end. So yeah, it's a surprise, but again, it was just a disappointing surprise, not an oh my gosh, that's where they're going with this. I don't. Yeah.
Couldn't it have been one of their great villains that they have yet to introduce instead of an Avenger? Like, did the bad guy have to be an Avenger? Did we have to?
And I mean, this is Doctor Strange we're talking about. They could easily just said like, oh, it's Nightmare or Mephisto pulling the strings, because those are perfect villains to bring in. Like, I even thought for a second at the end when America is, is fighting off Wanda, and she opens up the portal, and it's like, did she just open up the portal to hell? Like, oh my gosh, are they finally like doing this? It's like the film's already been banned in China, so they may as well finally open the portal to hell, because that's the big market that keeps them from doing a lot of these crazy things that they could be doing. And pretty much every Phase 4 film has been banned in China. So why not? If you're no longer depending on that market, do the stuff you couldn't do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a whole different story.
But it would have been Mephisto would have been so much, even if like he's controlling Wanda and then Wanda breaks free of the control. It's my control, guys. She didn't know. It's okay. We could just wipe that. We could just wipe that away. It's fine. It's fine. Mind control. It's all right. Happened to Hawkeye. Yeah. We forgave him. It was all right. Mind control.
Yeah, because like they do. There was a bit of a hint there, like I remember, where they talk about like, oh, Wanda can take over the multiverse if she gets American Chavez's powers. That could have been a good setup for like a villain using her to get that. Because honestly, I never really felt like she wanted to take over the universe. She just wanted her kids and then anybody who got in her way. So it's just like
yeah.
I felt like that could have just been like, that would have actually made it a legit threat if there was another villain who's trying to take over the multiverse. Mephisto, Mordo, whoever, I don't know.
Yeah.
And they're just like building up on her wants and desires to try to do all the dirty work to get it for them.
Yeah. Mordo.
Which is why I think they introduced the incursion idea, because like as I'm watching this, I'm like, she's not going to take over the universe even if she gets the powers. That they had to introduce something else to make it a threat, which is why I think they brought in the incursions could collapse an entire universe and all that.
Yeah. And you know what? This movie was so much of a WandaVision 2. It could have been Agatha all along.
Would have preferred that.
They're saving her for her own spin-off series.
Yeah.
Maybe Wong will be in it, and then her and Wong can go have adventures. It'd be great. Wong needs his own show too.
It's true.
Well, honestly, Wong could just be like the Stan Lee, just appearing in every Marvel property in some capacity at this point. People would love it.
Totally fine with that. More Wong is a good thing. You cannot have enough Wong.
Yep. So, going off of this topic of this bait and switch and advertising, do you think it's time for Marvel to rethink how they advertise some of their films?
Yes, absolutely. They only need one trailer, and really, we just need the title. Maybe a couple things from the first 15 minutes of the movie, but we don't need much to give you guys $1 billion every time you make one of these.
No. The only time I think... Oh, go ahead, Travis.
I definitely agree that they need to change up their marketing strategy, because I agree with you. At this point, Marvel can literally just make a trailer where it's just 30 seconds of the title followed by the Marvel logo. It's going to sell. I talked about the advertisement for this film. I think they should do more of what they did with Endgame, where because that advertisement before the film came out kept as much of it secretive because they knew that people were going to already want to see it. The trailers were just there to remind you, hey, this is coming out. Because, like I said earlier, it's just like they're just showing too much in some trailers. Like I don't want to see Abomination in a film. I'm not in the trailers for a film. I'm not expecting to see it. I don't want to see the Illuminati set up, like, unless that's going to play a bigger part and you have something even more to surprise us on later on, don't show it. Like, because at that point, like, Marvel at this point is now getting fan service-y, and it's just like Marvel knows that they have already people there. They don't need a bank on fan service to sell their films. They can have it to, you know, like, make people leave the film be like, oh, you should see this, you should see this. But, like, you don't need to show it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I think what I think they've got right now with Thor, I think is perfect. I don't need to see another trailer after this. It's only showing us stuff that we really know. We know that the Guardians were going to be in it because that's where he left off on his journey. We knew that Jane Foster was going to be in it as Thor, so it's fine that they showed a little bit of her, and I'm glad they didn't show that much because I don't want to see her in action yet. I just want to, you know, seeing the outfit's fine. Knowing that Valkyrie's back, that's fine. Getting to see the back of, you know, Russell Crowe's head, that's fine. They didn't show off Gore, and I think that's important. I would love for them to save Gore the God Butcher for, like, just the movie, because I've heard that he's going to be fantastic in it. They would have been, yeah, they would have done a really good job, I think, advertising Multiverse of Madness if they just stuck with that core trailer they left us with at the end of No Way Home. A perfect mood piece for this film.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly all that was the one trailer you need. That was all we needed.
So
exactly.
Yeah,
I don't need to see everything.
Keep the fan service out of the trailers. We go see Shang-Chi and we're like, woo, it's Abomination and Wong. This is awesome. Didn't know they were here. Hey, look, they're connected to the universe. That's great. Keep it out of the trailers.
I'll give Marvel this. I'll give them, you can give me a little bit more if it's like a new character or a sort of a new concept that you're working with. Like,
yeah,
if it, you know, because when Shang-Chi came out, it was like, okay, most people don't know what's going on here, so we should probably show them that this is going to be a kung fu film. You know, that's good enough. You know, show, you know, maybe show a little bit more with Eternals just to try and hook people. But if it's, again, Doctor Strange is an established character at this point. He's, you know, even if his own first film wasn't their biggest hit, he's appeared in 3 of their absolute monstrous hits of all time. People know. People are ready for him now.
4, actually.
Well, Thor, I know Thor wasn't like...
Thor Ragnarok, but...
I mean, Thor, I'm not trying to discredit Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok was amazing, but it didn't, you know, it didn't cross the $1 billion mark. It's not one of those, like... And again, we shouldn't be holding films to those standards of box office. But yes, at this point, yes, he's appeared in 4 other films. People know who he is. You know, we don't, like, whenever the next Spider-Man trailer is, you know, next Spider-Man movie, it's like, Travis, you hit the nail on the head, especially with someone like Spider-Man. You really just need to say, here's a Spider-Man movie, here's the title, speculate on what that means, and we'll see you in 6 months.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to show up because it's Spider-Man. Advertising. Marvel, if you could just hire us now to consult on your advertising, I think we'll do a great job.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about those big cameos. Because that was unfortunately one of the biggest selling points for this movie for a lot of people was, we got cameos here. See, nobody cares.
Cameo. Well played, sir. Well played. Nice.
Dachshund. We got Dachshund here.
Yeah.
Dotson's here. See, nobody cares.
I'll kick us off with this one. What did I think of the cameos? I thought they were fun. They were occasionally surprising, but given the story we got, it made sense that they were throwaway characters because this story wasn't about introducing different characters from different multiverses. It was about Wanda. Professor X was probably the only one that came close to actually feeling like he contributed to the narrative of the story. And I will say that visually, his scene where he goes inside Wanda's head was one of the coolest scenes in the film, visually. But then he dies. So it really was unfortunate that they brought in, particularly, I think, bringing in Haley Atwell, who's been a fan favorite from almost all the way back to the beginning of the MCU, to be brought back and killed off so unceremoniously. It's cool. Hooray, hooray, there's Mr. Fantastic, finally. And again, it gives us stuff to hopefully look forward to, but for this film, it was just like, oh, these are throwaway characters, and it's sad. Galen, what do you think about that?
Cameos should not be the selling point of a movie, and I feel like one of the problems with this movie is the fact that it was sold on cameos. I thought Black Bolt's cameo was very nice and unexpected. That was not an actor I ever expected them to bring back and reuse. Like, I thought if they were ever going to bring the Inhumans back after that, let's just say, awful TV show, I only maybe watched the first 20 minutes and then I turned it off because it suffers from superheroes cleaning up their own messes and it's bad. But I was not expecting them to bring the same actor who's also Captain Pike in the wonderful Strange New World show, Anson Mount. But that was great seeing him back. Always a pleasure to see Patrick Stewart back as Charles Xavier. John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. Yeah, sure. I'd be more excited if he was directing Fantastic Four as opposed to being in Fantastic Four. But really excited if his wife gets cast because Emily Blunt is the best. But John Krasinski, I could take it or leave. Haley Atwell, I could take it or leave. Lashana Lynch, I could take it or leave it. Charlize Theron is, I guess, playing a character called...
Oh, Clea.
Clea. Okay. As somebody who hasn't read a lot of Doctor Strange, I'm like, oh, Charlize Theron. What is that? That's okay. Cool. But yeah, Doctor Strange's music cameo, or not Doctor Xavier's music cameo, and then Bruce Campbell doing Bruce Campbell things was probably my favorite.
I didn't even think about the Bruce Campbell cameo. I do appreciate that one. I think actually more than the big ones, just because it's a Sam Raimi film, and it's like we knew it was going to happen, and it just happened in one of the film's more delightful moments. For anyone out there who's a fan of the evil, I was one of the maybe two people who was laughing at that moment because oh man, does no one here know what Sam Raimi did before Spider-Man? I guess not.
Yeah.
Some of us know.
There's so much Evil Dead, so many Evil Dead references in this. I ate them all up. Made me so happy.
Yep.
But they were fine. I didn't. Yeah.
Travis, what's your take on the particularly the big cameos?
Well, on the big cameos, I've stated before, they would have had more of an impact if they didn't show us anything. If they had to say anything, at most they should have just had the name drop Illuminati in there, but don't show us any of the actual characters. Because, like I stated before, it's just if you're going to show us some of the big key members, makes us think oh, they're going to have a big part in this, and they're just there for exposition, fan service, and to be killed off. That's it. I will admit it's exciting to see a live action Captain Carter. It's exciting to, like you said, it's amazing that they brought the actor back for Black Bolt from the Inhumans. Because I've never seen it, but I will admit the cast for that show is pretty good. They were all pretty well suited for their characters. They were just given a bad script, and his full on comic book accurate costume Like, first viewing, it was
everything.
Yep. I will admit that when I first saw it, it looked like it was too one color, but then I really looked at it and saw the lightning bolts and all that. And I'm like, okay, this actually looks pretty good. Like, it's goofy as heck in live action, but I love it so much. Yeah, it was nice to see Captain Marvel variant, seeing John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. But my biggest problem too is like it's harder to really get excited for them because we have no attachment to these versions of these characters. This isn't the Captain Carter we saw in What If. This isn't the Professor X we saw in the X-Men films. They're just visually looking like them, but like other than that, we have no connection to it. I felt like they should have introduced at least maybe some of the members earlier on the film, give us more of an attachment to it. So when they get killed off, it's like we have some attachment to it. And I also want to address one other thing about that. The internet has been having a field day with the whole like, Mr. Fantastic was dumb because why would he tell Wanda about the Black Vulcan killer? Few things on that. Number one, even if they killed Wanda straight up, it wouldn't have stopped her. She's in evil Wanda's still out there. They're just in their universe as Wanda. They would have been killing their friend, but wouldn't have been stopping evil Wanda. Number two, Reed Richards is more of a pacifist in the comic books. He prefers not to fight. That's why Ben Grimm is there. He's the muscles. So it's very in line with his character to be like, Wanda, let's talk this out first. And number three, they don't know the extent of her powers. They don't know that she can literally wipe out a person's mouth. The only other person they've seen use the Darkhold is Doctor Strange, but he had more control over it, that he was willing to kill himself. So it's safe to assume that they were just trying to reason with her until they gauged the situation and then faced. So they weren't acting dumb. I felt like they were acting logical for the situation because it's just like, that's been bothering me so much how people have been getting on them about that. But yeah, I'm excited more for like implications of these cameos. And I think the itineraries has talking more about that later on. So I think I'm going to save that for later. But the actual cameos themselves, I went in with too high of expectations because of what they showed me. It didn't live up to the expectations, and I left disappointed with it. If they had kept it secret, it would have had much more of an impact on me.
I think it's also worth mentioning about Reed Richards, and I haven't read the comic books in a while, but you know, when I read them, it's also like Reed is book smart. He's brilliant with machinery. He's brilliant with his inventions. He's not a people person.
No.
You know, he gets into fights with Sue so much. He's not the best person to, you know, talk someone down.
Yeah. Also, on the smaller cameos, I will say, while I love a Bruce Campbell cameo, I am disappointed that, like, come on, give him something to do. He's Bruce freaking Campbell. Give him an actual role to play, not just a joke in your movie. I want to see him play a character in future Marvel movies and not just. I appreciate the Evil Dead 2 references with how he's beating himself up and all that. But man, it's just like I want to see Bruce Campbell do more because like he just keeps getting embarrassed in Sam Raimi cameos. I think the last film Sam Raimi directed was Oz the Great and Powerful, where Bruce Campbell just gets beaten up by a munchkin. And I'm just like, you have Ash Williams. Let him kick some ass. Give him a gun. Give him a chainsaw, something.
Yeah. Like it would have been, have Bruce Campbell be a variant Iron Man. Like having him being one of the Illuminati members would have been great.
Honestly, I would have accepted a Bruce Campbell cameo if they made him a Mysterio variant, because he was supposed to play Mysterio in Spider-Man 4. That's the only Bruce Campbell cameo I think I would have been okay with if they had said, like, yes, he's actually that. Because I think some fans even asked him about that on Twitter. They did showed him a Photoshop of him as Mysterio, and he's like, ain't never gonna happen. I'm just like, come on, just 5 seconds, just like a brief cameo. Come on, like.
Or they go to retrieve the Darkhold from a cabin in the woods, and they run into a guy with a chainsaw head, and it's just like, you don't want any part of that book.
Actually, yeah, I'm surprised they didn't have a reference to the Necronomicon with all that in some capacity.
Well, I mean, in a way, the Darkhold basically is the Necronomicon, but it plays such an it's not such so prominently featured that you really think about it that much.
Yeah, that's true.
Follow-up question for these cameos, and I can already see where this question's going with everyone. Did this film fall victim to obsessive fan casting? I'm going to kick us off. The answer is yes. Because I wonder, like, would Reed Richards have even been in this film if, fans for years haven't been saying that John Krasinski should be Reed Richards? He may not have been if fans weren't so obsessive about casting him in that particular role. And, fans have been picking apart trailers and posters for this film and trying to prove that characters are showing up in it. People were certain that, this reflection in the poster, it's Deadpool. Deadpool's going to be in the movie. And, everyone was so certain that it was Tom Cruise to the point that it got toxic. There was that shot of Maria Rambeau as the Captain Marvel variant, and you couldn't really tell who it was because it was a blurry, still from the trailer. And people were like, oh, it's got to be Tom Cruise's Iron Man. And some people say, no, it looks more like Captain Marvel. And literally, you'd get people with the most toxic reply of, well, no one wants Captain Marvel, so why put her in it? And it's like, man, like, keep your sexist, misogynist opinions about Captain Marvel to yourself, because there are lots of people out there who are ready for the next Captain Marvel movie and who love seeing her in the role. So, just buzz off with that, and yeah, like, and so many people were just like, oh man, this is, we've talked about this already. Like, this is literally how they're going to pull in the X-Men and then Fantastic Four into the MCU. They're just going to come in from another universe and they're just going to be there. It's like, well, this is a Doctor Strange movie. This isn't an Avengers film. This isn't a big event film. Like, it's fun when you have these sort of team up films, but like, just because Doctor Strange was in No Way Home doesn't mean he brought along all of his villains and all of his characters. Just because Doctor Strange, he appears in everything, I guess. Since he was in Thor, he didn't drag along all of his characters to help out Thor. Like, these team up films are at their core about the title character, with Civil War being an exception, because that is very much, it is about Cap at the core, but it's very much an Avengers film. But half of that cast had already been well established at that point. But one of the reasons I tempered my expectations is because I just wanted to go into it and see a Doctor Strange movie and not have it become this big thing. What are your opinions about fan casting?
Me or Jalen?
Anybody can start up.
Go ahead, Tress.
It's hard to really say, because like Mr. Fantastic is the only real like fan casting, as most of the other Illuminati members are actors, at least somewhat attached to the characters. Either they played them, or like Maria Rambeau, she was in the Captain Marvel movie. It's hard to really say if they fell, because like this could just be a cameo to satisfy people, and then they could recast it for the Fantastic Four movie. I think at this point I have to wait and see when it comes to when they officially announce who's playing these characters in the Fantastic Four movie. And I don't necessarily have a problem with fan casting, if it's the right choice. Like, like John Krasinski, I think if with a better script and like give him something to do, he could be a really great Mr. Fantastic. And I would love to see him play opposite his wife, Emily Blunt, who is also the big fan cast. And Marvel has done fan casting in their movies before. Andy Serkis, I think, wasn't even supposed to be in Age of Ultron. I think he was brought on initially to help with the mocap, I believe. And then fans heard he was involved with that. They're like, oh, is he playing Ulysses Claw? And then they're like, he is now. And he ended up being really great in the part. So yeah, it's hard to really know, because it is nice that Marvel, you can tell, is listening to the fans, like, whereas other like franchises where they're like the DCEU, like when Zack Snyder's involved, he's like, I'm doing my thing. Like, you guys can like it or love it or not. So I appreciate that Marvel at least is hearing us out. They hear concerns and all of that. They hear what we want. And sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. Right now, it's just, like I said, a matter of we have to see what this leads to. Because if we're basing this solely off of like a quick cameo appearance, it's like in a few years when the Fantastic Four movie, because I think I heard just a few days ago, like Daniel Craig was actually supposed to play Mr. Fantastic in this, but he couldn't leave his country or whatever due to COVID restrictions, and then it ultimately went to John Krasinski. So it's like, so that's my thing about that. It's like, wait to see what happens before we make total judgments.
And I'm not trying to imply that I think fan casting is an inherently bad thing. I think it can be fun, to be chatting with friends and be like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if so-and-so was playing, so-and-so in the next Marvel movie. But it's like, I think it becomes unhealthy when you hop onto social media and you literally just try through sheer force of like will to be like, this is how it's going to happen. I know it. I'm willing this into existence that, because, or just with the Deadpool thing, like that reflection might be Deadpool. Deadpool has to be in the film. Otherwise this is a bad film. It never hurts to have fun with this stuff, but like once you get obsessive about it to the point where no other casting works for you, then I think it's unhealthy. And I also think it's important to remember that we're not casting directors. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I thought you were just talking about like, is it unhealthy with like Marvel listening to the fan casting? I misunderstood. Oh. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm trying to contextualize this in a way that, because it's like, it's not a bad thing, but it's just like when it gets to be the way it had been with this film in particular, with like, oh, Tom Cruise surely has to be in it. Like, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because I totally agree with like that whole like Maria Rambeau versus Superior Iron Man debate. That was just dumb and toxic. Because either way, it's just like, it doesn't really matter. Like, because you could tell it wasn't going to be, either way, you could tell it wasn't going to be Brie Larson. So it's just going to be a variant who probably is just going to be in that one film and then gone. So it's just like, doesn't matter who it is. But yeah, like I definitely agree with you, because the fan castings, like you talk about Deadpool and all that, it leads to a lot of other bad stuff. Like I remember leaked concept art of like Deadpool and other like pre-MCU Marvel characters within scenes in the movie, which made me go in with expectations like, if these are real. Like when we saw that one glass prison scene, I was fully expecting Ryan Reynolds to show up 100% at that point, because like I saw the glass thing, I saw the lead concept art, and I put quotations because at this point you could tell it was fake. I definitely agree. Like, yes, it's healthy to talk about for fun, but then there are people who are just going to be like, I'm going to troll everybody. I'm going to make this fake stuff and build up fake expectations and all of that.
Yeah, and it's the thing about fan casting too is, again, we're not casting directors. We're not the directors. Mm-hmm. One of the wonderful surprises about going to see a movie and seeing someone you didn't expect in the role is, when it works, it's brilliant. Like, with me, the straw that broke my back in a good way was Ant-Man. Ant-Man was the last Marvel film where I said, Paul Rudd? No. And after that, I was just like, okay, they have an idea of what they're doing at Marvel with casting. I'm not gonna, just be disappointed every time I hear a weird casting decision there. It's like they do a good job with casting. Jalen, what are your thoughts on that subject?
If anything, I wish they had gone with the cameos in this. I wish they would have gone in a different direction and not cast actors we had seen before, either in the universe or as playing characters, like bringing Patrick Stewart back to play Xavier again. Like, it also would have blown my mind if you would have heard the music and suddenly it's Leonardo DiCaprio wheeling up there with a bald head. And no offense to John Krasinski, but if you give me a Fantastic Four movie that has Daniel Craig and Emily Blunt, that sucker's making $2 billion. But and no offense to John Krasinski, but taking Daniel Craig every single time. But fan casting is great. I don't think posters should be analyzed to give you ideas on whether or not something is in a movie. I mean, that's really reaching for it there. But there's nothing wrong to speculate. And sometimes you get your wish, sometimes you don't. And I think, honestly, with some exceptions that I honestly can't think of off the top of my head, I think Marvel gets it right 9 out of 10 times. And off the top of my head, I can't think of one where it's been like either the wrong choice or just even a glaringly bad choice. And shout out to the original Marvel fan casting, Sam Jackson's Nick Fury.
Yeah, that one did work out very well.
Well, that one was just fan casting by comic book writers who just drew the character as. But yeah, I totally agree with you guys too. Like, it is fun. Like, sometimes you may be disappointed, like your favorite actors aren't going to play the character, with the exception of Batman, who's going to be played by every actor at some point.
Some way better than others.
Yeah. But yeah, there's always times where like, all right, we're going to get like one of these films, like maybe every 20, 30 years, or a reboot or whatever. Like, I would like to see this guy play this character before they're too old or whatever. But you got to have faith in the directors, because like Marvel has done a really good job at casting their characters, and even choices that we as fans weren't even on board. Like, I know people who were not on board with Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man when it was first announced, and now look at it. He's like the definitive Iron Man. A lot of people were against Chris Evans at playing Captain America because he was always played goofballs like the Human Torch, or the guy who put whipped cream on his nipples and his crotch, now playing Captain America. And now look at it. That is
a funny movie. That is a very funny movie.
There are going to be times where there's going to be choices that aren't going to work, and they're probably going to bury under the rug. I can't think of any. I thought Inhumans was going to be that, even though they were all good. But now look at it. They're back, or at least one of them is.
And one last thing before I move on to the next question. This is just the strangest thing to me is, I saw this movie. The first time I saw it was, the 7:00 Thursday night show. This is with the audience that, when we did this with Spider-Man, was cheering for Matt Murdock and was cheering every time a new villain showed up. And of course, for Toby and Andrew, it was dead silent for every single character in the Illuminati. No claps, no cheers, nothing. And it could be because, characters like Black Bolt are a little bit more obscure, but like even Professor X, the legend himself, Patrick Stewart, nothing. And it was like, wow, this is either this is not the Marvel audience, or they just are not amused by this.
That's weird, because I think I saw it on like the Friday or Saturday performance. There was only like 10 or 15 of us in there, and we all cheered for the Illuminati when each member basically showed up. So I think I just had the Marvel crowd, and I think you just had
Must have.
people who are, and you just probably had the people who are trying to get tickets.
Wasn't a lot of cheering in my showing of it either. It was a Tuesday night IMAX. It was pretty packed, but it was pretty silent.
And then since I mentioned Daredevil, I think another I always say it, one last thing. What made the Daredevil cameo work so well is that movie is so good, the story is so good, that by the time you get to the end, even though it's a memorable cameo, it's just a cameo. You've already forgotten it. It stopped mattering once, the real story kicked into gear. Whereas for this, it was like so many big cameos that were introduced late enough into the film that they should have been more important to the story. If they'd been introduced very early in the film and, had gone on from there the way that Daredevil was, it may not have mattered, but it felt like it should have mattered. Yeah. So the last question about the Illuminati, since they've appeared now, and this has raised a lot of questions online, is everything canon now? How do we approach all these past Marvel projects going forward, like the Netflix films, the Inhumans, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., even legacy franchises like X-Men, Ghost Rider, Ben Affleck's Daredevil? And I'll kick us off with this one again. And I would just say, maybe in your brain if you wanted to, but until something is explicitly stated in the movies, the way that, Andrew and Toby are in No Way Home and their respective villains, I'm not going to consider the Inhumans show canon. It's just Anson Mount coming back to play Black Bolt. I'm not going to consider the X-Men movies as canon. It's just a variant of Professor X who looks the same. Because on top of everything else, bringing the X-Men films in as canon is bringing in the worst possible baggage you can. There's so much to unpack with those films already, and they don't need to unload that onto the MCU, which is already getting to be huge. So unless Kevin Feige explicitly says it, in a statement or it's said in the movies, I'm not going to consider all that stuff, directly canon. And I'm going to say, whatever you want to make canon, go right in your own head, go right ahead. I know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a beloved show for a lot of people, and they want to believe that somewhere out there in the multiverse, Coulson exists. But for me, until they bring Coulson back and say, hey, buddies, I was out in another universe the whole time, it's just not to be for me.
Yeah, not canon. As perfect as season 4 of that show is, and that season 4 of that show is the best season of any Marvel series so far, including all the Disney Plus stuff. I would rank season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. above every Marvel Disney Plus show. It's
high praise.
It's not canon. It's not canon. As good, even as good as that is, it's not. It's in a different universe that also experienced the Hydra takeover of S.H.I.E.L.D., but a different universe.
Yeah.
Travis, yeah, go ahead.
When you say canon, I mean, I consider, even before any multiverse stuff has ever been established, I've always been the firm believer of different movies and shows always take place in their separate universe until it's directly referenced in another movie or show. So I consider it canon in the point that when Sylvie killed what's his name, He Who Remains, Kang the Conqueror, I'm just gonna call him, where each film is going to take place in their own separate branch universe, but until they're brought in, it's not explicitly going to be canonized. People be like, oh, John Krasinski is going to play Mr. Fantastic. No, he's just playing a Mr. Fantastic. Because we've seen variants look completely different. Look at the 3 Peters. This could have just been a quick, you guys wanted it? Here you go. Now let us cast our own person. A lot of people be like, oh, well, the Inhumans, they're going to come back. No, this is just, again, a cameo until they want to bring the Inhumans back, whether they want to make the show canon or reboot it. We don't know until Kevin Feige or whoever says, it's canon, or it's not canon, we're going to do something different. So no, I don't really say anything is canon within the main universe, but I consider things canon in that they're in their own separate universes, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And I think that's a good way to look at it, because, it's whatever you want to fit in there. It'll fit in there.
Yeah.
Just
like,
don't expect your favorite characters to just show up now that there's a multiverse.
Yeah.
Or that Marvel owns the rights.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they own the rights to most, but as you can tell with like Gargantos and Shumagorath, there's still some characters you're not going to see for a while.
Yep.
I mean, heck, it'll be a miracle when they can actually make a Hulk movie without Universal.
I hear that they're getting close to it. I think the rights are about to expire with Universal, but that's just
I
rumors.
hope you're right.
Because I've heard talks that they want to make a World War Hulk movie with Mark Ruffalo, which would be interesting to see.
I've heard that too, but I just don't. The way his character arc's been going, I'm not sure. He just seems so pleasant. He hasn't seemed quite as rageful as he's been in the comics.
Yeah.
What do I know?
Secret. He's always angry.
Well, they could introduce a variant of Red Hulk or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Or they could bring in Joe Fixit or some other version of Hulk. He's had multiple personalities in the past. He's been Moon Knight basically.
Yeah, Hulk and Moon Knight can have a show where it's multiple personalities, and it's just multiple Mark Ruffalo's and multiple Oscar Isaacs.
Or they could bring in Edward Norton's Hulk for a quick film and say he's the one doing all that.
Whew, that would have been an Illuminati cameo that would have blown my mind, or variant Iron Man with Terrence Howard as Iron Man. Variant War Machine.
Oh boy.
These discussions just go off on their rails.
Yeah. And I'm gonna get it right back on. So moving on from cameos and canon, one important thing about the Multiverse of Madness is that it's the first MCU film whose events directly follow a Disney Plus series. Now, as more people start to see in the coming weeks, do you think we're going to see some confused reactions from people who may have missed out on WandaVision? Because maybe not, among our particular circle, but there are countries out there where Disney Plus is not available, where this movie is showing. The only way they will have been able to watch it is, by some hackneyed, maybe VPN or for pirating. But there's still a lot of people who just don't, or people just don't have access to the internet, can't watch WandaVision. Do you think that this is going to be, leaving these people confused? And you think this is going to become more of a problem going forward if they keep trying to directly connect these series to the movies?
Absolutely. I mean, even without the series, it's always been a hassle for some people who aren't like us, dedicated fans who follow these films passionately, to keep up with it. We've had 26, 27 movies at this point alone. Imagine if somebody just now deciding, you know what? I hear a lot of good things about Marvel. I want to get caught up on that. And then you're just like, all right, here's 27 MCU films. Here's now some basic information about the X-Men franchise, which will make an appearance later. You also need to know about the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man films and all that to understand No Way Home. It's just that's the problem, alone with a franchise this big by itself. It's going to be confusing already. But now that you're bringing in multiverse and bringing in franchises that were never connected to the franchise to begin with, and then now adding TV shows on top of it, it's just a lot. Even for me, who is a fan, I still need to get caught up with Moon Knight and all that. That it's hard for me to keep up with everything.
Jalen, what do you think?
It is a lot, but I don't. From what I've seen from the Disney Plus shows, I haven't seen anything in the movies that I feel like I would have missed out on by not having seen the Disney Plus shows. I think part of that, with the exception of Moon Knight, is because they're about established characters. Characters you've already seen in movies, but I haven't seen. I mean, you could watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness without having seen WandaVision, and I don't think you really miss out on, with the exception of her kids, knowing where they're from. Outside of that, you're not really missing out on anything, which is a shame. And that's my problem with it, because you should be feeling something, but you're not.
Yeah. And I totally get where you're coming from, 100%. But the way I'm looking at it too is like, we're just seeing the beginning of phase 4. We don't know what's all yet to come, because like Anthony Mackie is going to get his own Captain America film, and a lot of the events from Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to play a big part in that. Multiverse has been taking a big key factor in this franchise and Kang the Conqueror is set up in Loki, and I feel like he's going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, or at least a variant of him. And I feel like even events in this movie mixed with the multiverse of Kang the Conqueror and all that is building up to their next Avengers film, which could possibly be Secret Wars. So that even though it doesn't seem like it's going to connect now, down the road, a lot of the events that we're seeing right now are going to lead up to something bigger eventually. At least that's how I'm looking at it too.
Yeah. It just hasn't. I completely agree. As you said, we're still in the early stages of phase 4, so we haven't quite seen the coming together, if you will, of Marvel's Crisis on Infinite Earths, as if you will. That is what phase 4 is, the Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yep. I think actually you both bring up good points, because Travis, you're right. It does help to have all this background knowledge, every time you see a new film. It always helps, even with some of the little things. But you know what, Jalen? You made a good point about, it hurts more having seen WandaVision, but you know what else? If you haven't seen WandaVision, then you're just going straight into Wanda's story from the end of Endgame. And you may wonder where the children are, but you're not going to wonder where Vision is, because if you haven't seen WandaVision, he's still dead. And essentially they left Vision where they left him off in Endgame. Like, he's just gone. Which is, again, a real shame. Because Paul Bettany also put in the work for WandaVision. But
so much good work for WandaVision.
I'm still curious where White Vision went at the end of that. I'm surprised they didn't bring him in to try to help stop Wanda.
Yeah.
We talked about that earlier.
Yep.
Me too. Yeah. Me too.
I hope it's not a situation with the leader in the Incredible Hulk where they set White Vision up and then never address him again.
Yeah, no, they're not going to do that.
Because, land.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that because, Vision is, he's only appeared in a handful of films, but like Wanda, he has had a huge impact on audiences everywhere. People love him. And we all kind of have to accept that the leader is probably never going to happen, but
fingers crossed for She-Hulk, at least addressing it.
Yeah, maybe.
Just to mention, just like Samuel Stearns is in prison, has been for years. There you go. Fix it with a line of dialogue.
Technically, and this is what's really frustrating, this is kind of the same kind of frustration it is going back and forth between movies and TV shows. Technically, leader was addressed in a comic book tie-in to Incredible Hulk.
That.
Yeah, Black Widow comes in and detains him. Oh. And he's I think that would mean he's on the raft at this point. But he is in custody. But it's like they never bring that up in any of the films, so
yeah. It's hard to really classify that as canon because there was a Marvel one-shot that with Phil Coulson that was no, wait, it was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where they mentioned that he's locked up in ice, and then all of a sudden in Shang-Chi, he's in an underground wrestling ring with Wong.
Yeah. Yeah.
That might have been before the Hydra takeover, though. Hydra might have let. But then why would? But anyway.
Yeah, too many questions.
Many questions.
I'm not even going to address this next question to the crew because there's an easy answer for this one. Could this be alleviated by giving consumers the option to own physical copies of these Disney Plus series? The answer is yes. If that option exists, it's great for those of us who invest in physical media. Of course, why wouldn't it be?
Beautiful shelves filled with beautiful things.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of talk before, for people who've seen this movie who were like, people who saw previews of it, they literally got onto Twitter and said, here's the list of everything you need to see to appreciate Multiverse of Madness. And oh my God, their lists were long. They were like, oh, you have to watch Inhumans. You have to watch the X-Men animated series. You have to watch, all this stuff just for those brief cameos. It's like, I don't think so. I think that to really understand I think the best way to understand what's going on here is really exclusively to follow the storylines of Wanda and Stephen Strange. Mm-hmm. So really, Age of Ultron, Civil War, Doctor Strange, Infinity War, Endgame, WandaVision, I think are really the only things to give you the best understanding of what's going on in this film are really the only things you need to see. Ragnarok is a nice, little Easter egg if you want to get all the Doctor Strange you can out of it, but it's really not necessary for him as a character for his journey. And What If is a nice setup for the concept of the multiverse, but they didn't tie it into the movie the way that I think a lot of people thought they were going to before it came out. So What If is, I think, a nice primer for the concept of variants and Easter egg cameos, but not necessary. Does anyone disagree on anything there?
I completely agree with that list. That you had, Ben. The only thing I would add is No Way Home.
I would also include No Way Home. Well, yeah, I wouldn't quite put it in the same place as Thor, but I don't think
there's some things in
helps.
there.
It helps.
I think there are some things because it builds upon the whole Doctor Strange can mess with stuff themes between him and Wanda, which I think is helpful for understanding each of the characters' motivations. Like Wanda being like, "Why can you mess with the multiverse, but I can't?" type of situation. But I don't think it's necessary 100%. I feel like because Doctor Strange has already kind of messed with the multiverse in Infinity War by seeing alternate realities and all that. So you could just throw that away with that line.
Well, that's true.
Actually, Jalen, you've convinced me because there's something I'm going to bring up later that actually ties No Way Home to this film in a very poignant way. But otherwise, no, anyone who's watching this, you do not need to watch everything to understand those cameos. You don't need to watch Inhumans. You don't need to watch the entirety of the X-Men animated series. No, you don't need to watch all of What If. It's,
There were two ways. Doctor Strange lied. There were two ways. Two ways he could have beat Thanos. There were two ways. Not just one. There were two. Because in this one, it presents a alternate way to defeat Thanos.
Can I?
Darkhold. Sorry, and I'm also going off on a tangent here.
No. I like to throw out a quick theory with that. Because given the timeline with all that, my theory is the reason why only one timeline could have actually worked was because during Infinity War, the TVA still existed. They would have pruned any other reality that went against the sacred timeline. It wasn't until It wasn't until Loki that established that He Who Remains being killed allowed alternate timelines that they could have done it any other way. Which is why I think out of 14 million, there's only one possible way. So my theory is that any other way, TVA show up, prune, and be like, all right, reset it, do it the proper way.
Thank you. I needed that.
Yeah.
Because there is a quick throwaway line that also builds upon that in No Way Home, where Doctor Strange mentions this shouldn't even be possible when he talks about alternate universes, because I feel like he would have known it couldn't have been possible because the TVA wouldn't have allowed for multiple universes.
Yeah.
He would have known about the one sacred timeline because of all of that.
Yeah.
I also think it's just fun to joke about Infinity War, where it's like, why doesn't he just chop Thanos' head off with a sling ring like he does with what's his name's hand?
Yeah.
It's like,
Coal Obsidian.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Obsidian.
It's like, why doesn't he just do that? Yeah, because then we wouldn't have a movie. So, where was I? I scrolled down too far in the itinerary. Oh, okay. Here we go. So, brought this up very briefly earlier. So, Multiverse of Madness has joined this very elite group, which I shouldn't call them elite because, in particular, one of these films is very unelite. Films that had changed directors at one point during production. So originally, Scott Derrickson, who directed the first Doctor Strange, was set to direct this film. And it was going to be, he would probably very likely co-write it with his writing partner, C. Robert Cargill, who also contributed to the first film screenplay along with John Spates. So then a few months in, it was announced that Jade Bartlett would be writing the script for this film. But then we had the fallout where Scott Derrickson and Cargill left the production citing creative differences. And not too long after, they brought in Michael Waldron to write the screenplay, and Sam Raimi came in to direct the film. So 2 other films in the MCU have notoriously had production problems with their directors. Alan Taylor replaced Patty Jenkins on Thor: The Dark World, and then Peyton Reed came in to replace Edgar Wright, who left Ant-Man citing creative differences. The difference between this one and those 2 films are that with Dark World and Ant-Man, they had completed scripts. And then the directors Jenkins left, and I actually looked this up. She actually said, several years after she left because she said it wasn't a good script, and I knew I couldn't get anything out of it. And because I'm a woman in the industry, if I fail, I'm never going to be able to do a film like this again. So she said, I need to leave this project. And thankfully, she got to direct Wonder Woman. And even Alan Taylor, when he came on, said, this script was not good. And I tried to do stuff to make it more whimsical and fun. But we also have to remember, this was the Ike Perlmutter era of the MCU, where he was still very much holding the leash on a lot of the talent. And so we got what we got with The Dark World. Edgar Wright left Ant-Man, again over creative differences. He just wasn't too keen on making a film that tied into the greater universe. But he got to stay on as an executive producer, and he did get, I think he stayed on as an executive producer, but he definitely got credit for the screenplay because Paul Rudd and Adam McKay.
Yeah.
Was it Adam McKay? I think it was Paul Rudd and Adam McKay came in and retooled the script and kept a lot of what Wright did. And Ant-Man actually turned out to be a very fun film.
Yes.
But this time around, it's completely different circumstances. Derrickson and Cargill left before they had really contributed anything to this film. And it makes me wonder, would it have been a completely different film? Because when he initially left, people thought, oh, is it because he wanted to make this horror movie and that maybe he wanted to push the horror elements too far? Well, if that's the case, then he was insane, because what Sam Raimi did already pushes this film a lot further in terms of violence and shock value than any other Marvel film. I wonder if Derrickson left because he had a completely different idea of where he wanted to take the characters. And that worries me. Would Derrickson and Cargill have done the same thing to Wanda that Michael Waldron ultimately did? And I don't think we're going to know for a few years. was Wanda's turn as a villain something that was always planned for this film by Kevin Feige or by, someone else high up at Marvel? When did that happen? Because, and Derrickson did stay on again as an executive producer, but, you don't get that much control as an EP. He probably mostly just stuck around to give them input on Strange.
Mhm.
It worries the heck out of me that, how much of the screenplay was complete before Raimi joined. This isn't one of the weirder instances of a director leaving a production for Marvel. I don't know.
Yes, and I wonder if Wanda, if Scott Derrickson had stayed and his team had stayed, I wonder if Wanda was forced on him, and maybe that's why he left. Because if Scott Derrickson gets to do a Doctor Strange 2 completely willy-nilly, does he include Wanda? Is Wanda a part of that story? Maybe Derrickson's take would have been a bit more horror-centric and maybe used Baron Mordo as the villain, because he's still out there somewhere. Somewhere Chiwetel Ejiofor is out there in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But would Wanda? I mean, would they have used Wanda?
I will agree that yes, Sam Raimi did push the boundaries on there, but even I can probably look at it too. There's a lot of standard Marvel stuff in here. There are some action scenes in there, like the Shuma Gorath or the musical notes, battle scenes. Yes, it's very creative. That's very Sam Raimi. But then you look at the fight between him and 838 Mordo, and you're like, all right, this is just your standard Marvel fist fight action scene. So it could be possible that even Sam Raimi might have wanted to push it, because I'm like, yes, there are moments in here that are 100% Sam Raimi and he's pushing it, but I feel like knowing him, he probably wanted to push it even more. But they're like, we got to keep it PG-13. Not gonna lie. It is very interesting to wonder that reasoning, like you guys are saying too, because I will agree. It does seem like it's a bit interesting to be a Marvel director, because, again, you have to build upon 20 something other directors that have come before you, while trying to tell your own original story, and you have Papa Feige up there also telling you what you can and cannot do. Yeah, that's a very interesting question you bring up, Ben.
Yeah.
Perhaps there is another universe where Derrickson got to make his film, and it wasn't all I really want out of this film at this point is to save Wanda. You can throw any of the other silly crap in there, but save Wanda.
Yeah.
Wanda showed up in Act 3 to help Doctor Strange beat Mordo. There you go.
Anything, anyone, yeah.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. I was gonna say, just say this is a variant Wanda that just took over as the main MCU Wanda, and then we find out later that good Wanda comes back.
I know.
Wait, you're good Wanda? Yeah. How do we know? Because of this. All right, cool. I'll believe it. There you go.
Yeah.
Out of dialogue.
# restore the Wandaverse.
Restore the Wandaverse.
All right, moving on. We've brought this up very briefly, but Multiverse, as Travis mentioned, was originally set to release before No Way Home, with America Chavez playing the prominent role of being the person who brings in Andrew and Toby. Do you think this film should have come before that? And I'm mixed on this one, because I think it would have been really cool to actually see Strange travel the multiverse and see what it's like before other characters start coming into our world, so that really kind of ups the drama for him, saying, I've been out there. It's wacky out there. I don't want that stuff coming here. But on the other hand, there's the line in both films that Strange has about the grand calculus of the multiverse. And he says to Peter, in the grand calculus of the multiverse, their deaths mean more than their lives. And he says that to Supreme Strange. I think it's Supreme Defender Strange says that to America in the opening scene. In the grand calculus of the multiverse, your death will mean more than your life, because I will have this power now and I can protect it. What I love about that is it does give our Strange a more empathetic view of the world, because he's now seen that Peter can save he can save his adversaries. So why can't he do the same thing? Why can't he find a different route? There's never one answer. The grand calculus of the multiverse doesn't matter, because you do have a choice. And I think it's great that he learns. I think that intentional or not, he learned that from Peter.
Yeah. It like you said, it is hard to tell because we don't know what the plans were initially when Multiverse was supposed to come out first, beyond American Chavez bringing Toby and Andrew in. But beyond that, we don't know this how it was supposed to play out. But I think, like you said, I think it actually works really well in this capacity, not just because he learns about people's sacrifices, meaning war in the grand scheme of things, and all that, but also I think because I think No Way Home is a good way to set up Doctor Strange as he doesn't understand that the multiverse is out there, because I mentioned earlier, there's that quick throwaway line that kind of hinted that he didn't even know the multiverse existed, and which could explain why he would be more open to helping Peter out, because if Multiverse came out first and then he did a spell that he possibly knew would affect the multiverse, that would not make sense at all, especially because people are already in No Way Home when the trailers are coming out. Doctor Strange would never do a spell like that. It's very out of character. It must be Mephisto or somebody. So I think that the way it happened now, it works very well in the story structure. But again, we don't know what could have happened, how it would have played out, but it's very mixed at this point. If I could go to another universe and see what that would have been like, it would be nice, but I can't. I'm not Chavez.
I would say that No Way Home needed to come before this movie. Because in No Way Home, that is the first time you really get to see Doctor Strange lose. I mean, outside of What If, but this is the first time, at least in live action, that you get to see him lose. Now,
outside of his control.
Yes, lose something that is outside of his control. He lost in Infinity War, but he did that on purpose. It was part of the plan. Yeah. In this one, in No Way Home, you see him lose, losing his memory of Peter Parker. That is a loss. That is a huge loss. And you get to see him sort of, it's interesting that Sam Raimi directed this in Spider-Man 2, because they have a lot of the same similar, is being a hero worth it kind of themes. And I think in order, you needed to see Doctor Strange lose before this movie. And this movie is more powerful having seen that before.
Well, you bring up the original trilogy. That actually is a perfect transition into the next topic. Is how would you compare, since this is Sam Raimi's first superhero movie in 15 years, been 15 years already since Spider-Man 3. How would you compare his work on this to his work on the Spider-Man trilogy? John, I'll just let you pick up where you left off.
Sure. It's Sam Raimi is one of those directors who is meant to kind of play in this kind of sandbox. He just can make just some very bold, interesting choices. The way he moves the camera, the way the characters act, the way, his love of screwball 1920s, 1930s comedies. He's very inspired by the Marx Brothers and other silent film comedians, but he can also do, very intense horror and very intense scenes of drama. I mean, he is a very versatile filmmaker. I think he's a more versatile filmmaker than he gets credit for. And it's great to see him play in the comic book sandbox. And I would say that, granted, it's been a while since I've seen the Tobey Maguire films, and honestly, it's been about 15 years since I've seen one of those Tobey Maguire films, aka the third one, which I think I've only seen since the time I saw it in theater. And boy, howdy, it was almost as entertaining watching my friends lose their minds over how bad they thought the movie was. I think Spider-Man 3 is not as bad as people say it is, but not being as much of a Spider-Man fan as some people, I can also get where some issues lie. But it's great to see him play in the superhero sandbox. And I would say that this is at least as good as the first two Raimi Spider-Man films.
Travis, how would you compare this one to Raimi's Spider-Man films?
In terms of quality, I feel like he still is keeping up his quality of films. Like, yeah, you brought up Spider-Man 3 is not that great, but that one had a lot of studio interference and stuff outside of his control, like being forced to use Venom, who he has openly admitted he does not like or care about. In terms of style, I feel like this film allowed him to really be more in the sandbox, because like with Spider-Man, you're limited to his universe and his power capabilities. You could tell Doctor Strange, Sam was having a lot of fun coming up with creative ideas to use, like the Doctor Strange magic and like capturing some of that visual style of the early comic books and all that Doctor Strange is from. I feel like this was definitely allowed him to just have a bit more fun visually, because he is a very visual director. He loves having fun with his camera angles and creative ideas and all that. Of course, like I feel like it suffers a lot of what Spider-Man 3 was suffering from with studio interference. Like you could tell Sam Raimi had to do stuff in this film that he probably didn't want to do, but he had to do for the sake of the universe and telling the story of everything. But yeah, like I said, like Sam is still keeping up the same quality, even though he hasn't directed a film in, 9 years at this point?
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Keeping up
Which
quality.
should not happen. Hollywood, Sam Raimi needs to direct more. Sam Raimi, you need to direct more.
Yeah. But yeah, like I was saying, like he's still got it. He's still producing quality films of what he can, and he's still producing fun visual spectacles that we can just have fun with. And I do think it is nice that he dropped a Doctor Strange Easter egg in Spider-Man 2, and now he's directing Doctor Strange.
Yep, I think that he has not lost his touch. I just think it's a shame that like Spider-Man 3, like you said, Travis, he definitely, he seemed very enthusiastic about the whole process of making Doctor Strange, but knowing that the film had certain reshoots and hearing what those reshoots might have been, mostly putting in, all those cameos, it's definitely another moment where it's like, man, all the great stuff that he does in this movie is a little bit overshadowed by, the necessary Marvel marketing machine that is unfortunate, because we've had, for the last several years, we've had James Gunn, Taika Waititi, and the Russo brothers come in and really get to make the films they wanted to make. And I think that if Sam Raimi had been the director attached to this film from the beginning, I don't think that would have been as big of a problem. But he did, again, he came in to a film that was, already getting to the tail end of its pre-production and just needed someone to get it made.
Yeah.
I don't want him to be the director who just comes in to get it made later in, if he does this again for Marvel.
And what a huge get, too, to get Sam Raimi to just jump in like this, too. The guy who made Spider-Man. Huge get. Sorry.
And I totally agree with you, Ben. Like, you brought up like James Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxy and Taika Waititi with Thor Ragnarok. I actually saw an interview with this film talking about that, where those films you could tell like the directors had more creative freedom to tell a James Gunn movie, a Taika Waititi movie, where this film, it's like you had moments of a Sam Raimi film and then moments of a Marvel film. And I think a lot of that does come down to like Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok. They were mostly standalone in their own films, like they weren't dependent. Whereas Doctor Strange is, like we were saying, is building on Doctor Strange, Infinity War, Endgame, No Way Home, WandaVision, and now it's introducing new stuff that could potentially set up future stuff down the road. It's just like, I am curious about like if he comes back to direct Doctor Strange 3, what he'll do. And I'm also curious what this film could have been if in an alternate universe where he could just make a standalone Doctor Strange that's not attached to any universe pre-existing. I feel like that could be a very interesting film to see.
Yeah. Okay, so this film literally released to theaters the night after Moon Knight came to its end. Do you think that the release of this film robbed Marvel fans of the Moon Knight conversation? And do you think that we're getting to a point where, you know, we just had 2 straight years of no Marvel films, I mean, on top of just no films, period. But now we're back into it, and we're getting so much at this point. Does Marvel need to start giving their projects a little bit more breathing room between releases? And I'm including the Disney Plus shows on this, you know, because we're also at this point under 2 months away from Thor. That gives Doctor Strange, you know, only 2 months as the one Marvel movie, and then it, you know, it's already going to be competing with like Top Gun and Jurassic World. But like, if it's still even in theaters in July, like suddenly you have 2 Marvel movies that have been released really close together. And they did that last year too. Like, it was like every 2 months after Black Widow came out, you'd have a new Marvel movie. Is it time for them to start spreading it out just a little bit?
I think so. I feel like Marvel was just writing their success a little bit, because like I remember in the early days, like we'd get like maybe 1 Marvel movie a year, and eventually we started getting 2 Marvel movies, and then eventually 3 Marvel movies, and just more and more and more. Where I feel like, as much as like I like these films and I still like them to this day, there is such a thing as burnout if you're gonna keep throwing all this, especially with Kevin Feige saying, "Oh, we have our schedule for the next 10 years all set." It's just like, if you're gonna keep releasing these films at such high volume, it's just like, how many stories do you have at a certain point? It's like, there's always that saying, leave people wanting more. And if you just keep giving us more and more, it's just like, it's going to be a lot for even us hardcore fans. I feel like they should at most do maybe 2 films a year and 1 TV show to give them some breathing room. At least that's my personal opinion.
And it's getting tougher now with the shows, because the shows aren't now being based on characters that you're familiar with from the movie. Mm-hmm. So now you're forcing yourself even more to watch this, because you don't know if it's, you don't know if this X problem is going to be solved in Y several on down the line, or, that was with this. And that was, I think I would have enjoyed Moon Knight more as a movie than as a show. Because I think I think the stakes would have been higher. And I think, for me to watch it, I think the stakes would have been higher. That's separate conversation, not for this podcast, but I think once we get to the point, and I think we're very close, when we get to the point of where we have 2 Marvel shows a week, that we now have to pay attention to. One is fine, but once we get two, and if there's a Star Wars show, and suddenly I got like 3 Star Trek shows to watch on top of that, and then what if Amazon threw out one of their R-rated superhero shows? Literally the only thing I watch on Amazon are 2 things, both R-rated superhero shows. It's like if one of those are on there, or Netflix is something interesting, like then my time is just stretched. So if they go more than one show at a time, then yes, absolutely. And I think the movie releases will calm down, because I think we are suffering from pandemic where we have been sitting on this. So we are getting 4 movies a year. But I think that'll calm itself down too, hopefully.
I have a feeling that, I have a feeling the movies are going to calm down. It's just really frustrating right now to have like Thor come out 2 months later. It's like, that's not, like Far From or No Way Home got 5 months in the theater before Doctor Strange came out, and it got to, enjoy a lot of time, a long time in that. It stayed in the theater up until like late April.
Yeah.
And when the Avengers came out, it opened in May and was still playing in a lot of theaters in September. It's nice to just have breathing room. And, it is also cool, though, when they're released close enough during the summer that maybe, for instance, one of the drive-ins this summer might play Doctor Strange and Thor back to back.
I'd watch that. I'd watch that double feature. That'd be fun.
Yeah. But, I'm all for more breathing room, unless one project, like a Disney Plus show, literally leads right into a movie that's coming out. Like, that I think is a little bit more fun, but like Moon Knight does not lead right into Doctor Strange. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier did not, apart from, the fact that it had the Kingpin and you have the Matt Murdock tie in there. Otherwise, Hawkeye doesn't, really tie into No Way Home. So it's like that overload there. I'm ready to have a little bit of space. I'd be fine with 3 movies a year, but they need to be further apart. You have 12 months out of the year. Give a movie. If you were to start at the beginning, and you never start on January 1st, who releases a movie then? But like release a movie in January, you give it 4 months, 4 months, 4 months.
Yeah.
But or
something in February, something in the summertime, and then something around Thanksgiving, or Christmas, or something like that.
But as it stands, we're getting 2, I know it's technically not summer, but it's the summer movie season. We're getting 2 Marvel movies for the summer movie season. Whew.
Yeah. 2 big uns.
All right.
2 big uns.
Yeah. We haven't talked about the mid-credits scene yet, and it is.
Is that the one with Vera? Clea?
Yeah.
Clea? Okay.
So where do you think they're gonna? I mean, I know that Jalen, you're not as well versed with the comic books, but I'll jump to Travis first. What are you hoping or think is gonna go with that?
What I'm hoping for is that it is. I talked about this during the No Way Home, and I talked about it here. I hope that this is just building up to that Secret Wars movie that I keep bringing up, because about like incursions and colliding universes. It's a perfect setup for me. And especially considering like one thing I thought about while leaving this theater is like, Wanda killed a member of the Fantastic Four, a member of the X-Men, a member of the Avengers, a member of the Illuminati, a space-themed hero, and all that. It's just like, and there's no repercussions for that. So I feel like I'm hoping like, though the members of that universe also can be like one of the keys on like this multiversal war and all that. Like they're trying to like, even though Wanda's gone, they're like, all right, well, like you killed big members of our teams. Stuff has got to happen. What I'm really hoping for, though, is I definitely want to see, like, well, first, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I'm hoping that going back, like, I'm hoping it's building up to that. That's my big hope overall. I know in the comics, Clea is like the wife of Doctor Strange, which is like a good choice to introduce her after he gets over his ex, who's
Christine.
Yes, thank you. It was blanking on me for a sec. And I know she's also supposed to be the next Sorcerer Supreme, so I'm interested to see if they're going to build upon that as well. But yeah, like I didn't really. It's hard to really gauge this one because it didn't really leave me feeling that much. I wasn't too familiar with Clea that much from the comics and all that. I knew of her a little bit. But even as I'm watching this, like it took me a sec. Like, wait, who the heck is that? Is that supposed to be who this? Whatever. So yeah, it's hard for me to gauge right now on that.
I'm in a similar situation because there's so much going on in the MCU in general that some of these post-credit scenes they're just setting up so much that we don't know when we're going to see them next. Like the Shang-Chi post-credit scene with Wong and with Captain Marvel and Bruce talking about, oh, these are, emitting a signal. And it's like, well, where's the payoff for that? We know that the No Way Home, mid-credit scene, we're going to get Venom somewhere in the MCU down the line. That's the payoff for that. And since I know what Venom is, I'm not as concerned about that. I know that that's probably what's going to happen. But then again, it's like with Doctor Strange, it's like, okay, well, what movie in the immediate future are we setting up?
Yeah.
Probably nothing because, we've got Thor and Black Panther, Guardians, and the Marvels, and then Quantumania next year. It's like, this probably isn't setting up anything that we're going to see for another 2 to 4 years.
And that's a
end of 2023 at the earliest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also a big concern of me too, because like the last Doctor Strange movie we got was in 2016, and that after credit scene in there teased Mordo wanting to get rid of sorcerers. And so far, they have yet to expand upon that. This film even feels like it was giving me a leader situation where they had like a brief throwaway line like, oh, my Mordo and me, we don't get along. He hates me. We butt heads every now and again. I'm hoping like, please don't tell me that's the payoff for that after credit scene because you're deciding to do something else now.
Yeah,
so I'm hoping there's immediate plans for that after credit scene. I am curious if like, because I know Clea is the niece of Dormammu. I'm wondering if they're going to bring him back down the road somewhere, and because it's not going to be that hard to get the same actor who played him in the first one to come back. Benedict Cumberbatch played both.
Yeah,
true.
So I am curious if like Dormammu's going to come back, and if it's just going to be a quick appearance, or if he's going to play a bigger part somewhere down the road. Because like he even runs his own dimension, the dark dimension. So like the whole multiverse could really fit well with him in some capacity if you use him right.
Yeah, I just hope they do something with it. There's a lot of post credits and end of movie stuff that they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna, there's a celestial peeking out of the Indian Ocean right now. Yeah, we're just not gonna talk about that. Pip the Troll and Harry Styles, this character,
Eros.
Eros, thank you. I'm like,
I was gonna say Star Fox for some reason.
It's like Star Guy. Not Star-Lord.
Yeah, that's another thing I've been noticing. Like the characters they're introducing, because they already got rid of most of their big ones. It's like some of these characters, it's just like, who are these people? And it's hard to really get excitement for a character you know nothing about. It's like to the point to where they're banking on the celebrities playing them, like Charlize Theron, Harry Styles, and all of that.
Yeah,
it's like, and I know like even Nick Fury is not like wasn't a big name to general audiences, but like the fans still knew him. He was very, very popular. And even then Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah. I had no idea who that character was, and had that character not been played by an actress I recognize, I would have been like, "Who's that? What? What is that? What is this? What is this?"
But I was glad
I'm glad the Third Eye made an appearance, though. That was maybe my best part of the mid credits was, all right, Third Eye's a thing now. Yes.
Yep.
And I actually saw this film with a friend of mine, and even she, because I've been introducing her to the Marvel movies, and we've been watching them all together, and even she was just like disappointed with that scene because it doesn't mean anything to her who doesn't know the comics and all that. It's just a random character showing up, and then something happens, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, and then you got the Bruce Campbell after credits scene, which does nothing but just add a joke at the end.
It's over.
To the point to where it's just like, do they really need both scenes at this point? Because Marvel has been doing that a bit, I feel like, where like they have one interesting credit scene and the other is just like meh.
Shang-Chi had the big long one. Did it have a second one?
Oh yeah, the Return of the Ten Rings under his sister's leadership.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
There's that.
Another thing,
and then
gotta bring up too.
And then the Eternals teased Blade at the end of the credits. So it's like they've got all these post-credits scenes, and like, oh man, how long do we have to wait for the payoff for a lot of this stuff? Because I miss the days when it was like the end of Iron Man 2, and it's like there's Mjolnir, and we know Thor's coming out next year. Yes. And the end of Thor, they show the Tesseract, and it's like, oh, that's a Captain America thing. Yeah. And it's like, I just miss the days of them teasing a movie that's only going to be about a year off at most. Because all these teasers for getting.
And for films we don't even know that they're making, because like when they announced Phase 3, I know like they felt like they shot themselves in the foot announcing Infinity War as 2 parts, that it was hard to build up hype for the first one. That now it feels like they're keeping as much films as secret as possible. I don't know what I just said there. As secret as possible, to where we don't know what the next big Avengers team up movie is. We don't know what this is all leading up to. Like, yes, we're talking Secret Wars, we're talking about multiverses, but we don't know exactly if that's true or even when it's going to come out. It's like we're just watching all this build up, but we don't know for what. And
yeah, I think the more important keyword there is just when. Just because, like you said, all we know is the next like year and a half of what's happening, and it's like none of what they've teased in any of these post credits appears. It feels like it's going to be a part of any of this next lineup of films. We have to wait till probably Comic-Con this year to know when some of this stuff might start getting resolved.
And even then, it's just like some of these after credit scenes don't feel like they're building up to a single thing. Like a lot of them feel like they're just setting up their independent sequels. Like, like Harry Styles and Clea and all that. It's just like, how are these characters going to connect to each other? How is Blade going to connect to Avengers and all that? Like, it could be. Yeah. We don't know, but like nothing feels unified right now. Like Phase 1, it felt like, all right, they're assembling the Avengers. Like you could tell what their plan was. Phase 2 is like, all right, they're getting the Infinity Stones together. Like Thanos is showing up. There was a theme there. It doesn't feel like there's a theme with like these after credit scenes right now. Which I appreciate that they're wanting to focus on the individual franchises, but you got to get us excited for what's to come in some capacity. And I don't really feel like there's that same level of excitement as when I saw like you said, when I saw Mjolnir, or when I the Collector in Thor Ragnarok reference all 6 Infinity Stones, or Thanos being like, "All right, I'll do it myself." Like, I'm not getting that same level of excitement from these random characters or stuff like that popping up out of nowhere.
Yeah, we need Doctor Doom to just like turn 90 degrees toward the camera. I mean, that with a big smile on his, with a smile that you can't see because he's wearing a hunk of metal on his face. But that would be nice. That would be nice. I mean, Avengers, you had Thanos just make a little 90-degree turn towards the camera, giant smile on his face. You're like, whoa! Yeah.
All right. Moving on. I do want to ask, which do you prefer so far, the Batman or Doctor Strange?
The Batman.
Yeah, I'm more of a Marvel guy, but I'm gonna say the Batman was a overall more well-written film. So I'm gonna have to give the Batman this one on quality. But Doctor Strange wins in entertainment. I will say that. Doctor Strange is more fun, but Batman, I feel like, is right now more well-written.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree. Doctor Strange is fun, but the Batman hit on something that feels relevant. Doctor Strange has a lot more misfires in it than it should, frankly. I enjoy the heck out of it, but it's a much more flawed film than the Batman. So, yeah, it's a rare thing for me to say, but Marvel overall, I do think that Doctor Strange, because you burned Scarlet Witch so badly, you had a misstep with your storytelling. Which leads to this question: where would you rank the Multiverse of Madness among the other Phase 4 films? Jalen, I will go to you first.
Among the other Phase 4 films, I would say probably number 4. I would put Shang-Chi, Black Widow, and No Way Home ahead of it, and Eternals behind it. And I don't think there's anything else Phase 4 film-wise so far. I would also put WandaVision, and I know they're not part of the ranking, but I would also put WandaVision, Loki, and Hawkeye all ahead of it as well, as far as the Disney Plus shows.
Where do you stand, Travis?
I think for the most part, I agree with Jalen's. I think for me, for Phase 4, bottom is Eternals. It's the only film in Phase 4 that I don't care to really buy on physical media. I don't really care to watch it because, like, the characters in there, I can watch Doctor Strange fine because the characters there are fun and I can tell the story with them. I'm back and forth on whether or not I would put this above Black Widow, but I think as of right now, above Eternals would be Black Widow. I feel like I said, Doctor Strange is more fun. Then I think I would put Doctor Strange. Then I think I would put No Way Home just because, and then Shang-Chi at the top. Because while I love No Way Home, it was very much fan service, where Shang-Chi, it was a nice, just good standalone film, which I think buys at some points in this day and age where those are hard to find in a franchise like this.
Agreed. I think Black Widow would have been a lot better had it come out in 2017 as part of
And I think another problem I think I have with Black Widow is, like, it has some tonal issues for me. I love the opening with the montage and all that, and I felt like the rest of the film should have followed in that similar, darker, more serious tone. Because, like, at least I can say with Doctor Strange, it's like the tone is really much consistent.
Yes.
It feels like a unified film.
Yes.
Whereas Black Widow feels a bit clunky at times, like it's pieces of other films put together. Sorry, did I just cut out there?
Yep, we still got your voice though, so you're good.
Okay.
We didn't completely lose you.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that would be my ranking: Eternals, Black Widow, Doctor Strange, No Way Home, Shang-Chi.
I'm very similar to the both of you, just some slight differences. I would going from the bottom. I would go Black Widow, Doctor Strange, Eternals, Shang-Chi, No Way Home. I'm a little more forgiving on Eternals because I think it tried to do something ambitious. Didn't always hit the mark, but I love Shang-Chi for its standalone properties, and Simu Liu is just a blast to watch, as is Aquafina. They're so fun together. No Way Home is just it was everything I I think is everything a lot of people wanted. Black Widow, again, you're right, Travis. It's tonally inconsistent, and also, I was hoping for a more grounded ending to the film because I think it's really funny. At one point, Natasha is watching Moonraker on her laptop, a film which is very famous for its villain having his base of operations be a space station, which, as some people have pointed out, may be invisible to radar, but would not be invisible if you were to look at it through a telescope. And Black Widow features a villain who is hiding out in a flying fortress that may be invisible to radar, but if you were to look up, you should probably be able to see it. It does not. It does not seemingly feature the cloaking that Nick Fury's.
Oh yeah, the helicarriers have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
cloaking I will say, is too expensive.
Yeah,
can't afford.
I will say though too, like, I like Eternals for its ambition, but my problem, like I said, is just like you have 10 characters in a 2-hour movie. I feel like Eternals should have gotten a Disney Plus TV show at least to introduce each of the individual characters, and then either a season finale or lead it up to an Eternals movie. It's like, because there was only like a couple of characters in that film I even cared about. So when you don't care about the characters on the journey, you're not going to care about the journey.
And a weird power set. Like those characters had weird power sets. Not a great plan.
If nothing else, we can certainly say that so far, 5 films in, Phase 4 has been one of the most wildly inconsistent phases. I'd say by the end, it's probably going to look a lot like Phase 2 did, where you have some major hits and a handful of, misses, a la Thor: The Dark World. I think a problem is that Phase 3 was, I don't want to say too good, but Phase 3 was so good.
I think the issue too is like something I brought up earlier. There's no unifying theme to connect the Phase 4 films. So it's like, if there was that unifying theme, I think it would help set it better. But otherwise, it's just random films coming out at this point. And then in a few years, I'm hoping I'm eating my words, saying like, oh my God, this multiversal war film, like it connects every film that has come out before it. I'm so happy with this. But as of right now, it's just like, what does this have to do with this that has to do with this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Good standalone movies. Good standalone movies, but like right now it doesn't feel like a universe. It just feels like standalone films that just referenced each other.
Yep. It'll all make sense when we get there, but for now, we're just
hurry up.
All right.
It makes sense, Marvel.
All right. It is time to start winding down with some final thoughts. Travis, what are your final thoughts on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness?
Final thoughts: decent entry into the franchise. Could have really used another revision on the script. Fix some of the issues. Like, I like a lot of the characters. Like, I love American Chavez, but I feel like she only had like 1 or 2 scenes that developed her character, and the rest of the time she is just damsel in distress, living MacGuffin. And which I'm hoping they can fix with like a Disney Plus series or an American Chavez movie, which I would love to see. But Doctor Strange, not been one of my favorites, but I loved him in this. Wong, as always, MVP. But like the misses in this hit a lot harder than a lot of the other misses in like not just Phase 4, but in a lot of the MCU films in general. I wish the Illuminati had a bigger presence, or if they didn't, don't tease us with it. Like, please, just like if you're gonna promise us, like cake, don't deliver a sugar-free cake or something like that. I don't know. That just came off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would gladly watch it again. I'm just hoping that it actually leads to something bigger at this point. I'm just looking forward to what's the big end game plan. What's the next end game plan?
You have come up with the perfect metaphor, and one that is pulled directly from Parks and Rec, where Chris Traeger is supposed to bring a cake to a party, and I can't remember what he brings. It's like some vegan thing, and Ron says, "You were supposed to bring cake, and now you have deprived everyone of cake."
Not only did you not do your job, but you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget what it was. I think it was like a veggie loaf or something like that.
Or something that's like right. That.
Oh God.
And Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the veggie loaf that should have been sweeter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I wasn't even intending for that. It just happened to be a Parks and Rec reference.
Yeah, and although admittedly they taste great, I still know it's not real. Like it's the Impossible Burger with a bacon cheese. It's incredibly rewatchable. It's more rewatchable than I would say some Marvel films are, or some MCU films are. Hopefully it leads to something. It's a phenomenally acted film. As badly written as Scarlet Witch is, you cannot rave about Elizabeth Olsen in this movie more, even though it's such a terribly written character. And another question to ask is, can Marvel write women? It's the question. Can Marvel write women? I enjoyed Captain Marvel, but I also enjoyed it a lot better the first time when it was called The Long Kiss Goodnight, featuring Sam Jackson in the same role in both movies. But can Marvel, I think a big question coming out of this is, can Marvel write women? Can they write female characters?
Which I think is a great question to ask, and I also think we, the three of us, are the most underqualified people to answer it.
I would completely agree with that as well. I know I am.
I think it's not a matter if Marvel can write, because it's a matter of can the writers they choose, because different writers have brought us great female characters in this franchise. Black Panther had some good female characters in there.
Yes.
There's some great, I love the Wasp. I love a lot of these characters, but it really depends on whose hands they're in. Black Widow, did not care for her in Iron Man 2. Loved her in the Avengers. Age of Ultron, not as great. Infinity War Endgame, I really liked her arc in there. Black Widow could have been better. So again, I think it depends on. It's just hard to know because, again, it depends on the writer, and no matter how they write it, there's always going to be those people complaining about it because they're going to be like, "Oh, they're just trying to be woke," and I'm like, these characters have been around since the 60s and 70s. She-Hulk even came out in the 70s, I think, and I'm excited to see her Disney Plus series.
She-Hulk, yes, She-Hulk.
Yep. Sorry, but were you still talking, Jalen?
Oh, no. It's a great mid-tier Marvel film that hopefully will lead to something, and it's not as good as the Batman.
One last thing, I would be very remiss if I didn't mention it. The film is called Multiverse of Madness, and they're only in 2 universes, maybe 3 if you include the one where that book is at the end, and then a brief scene where they travel through 20 universes in less than a minute. I wanted more multiverse in this.
Yeah, we got more multiverse in an episode of What If than we did in a 2-hour movie.
Which also reminds me of something I thought about too. Going into this movie, I thought the Illuminati was going to be a multiverse Illuminati, characters from different universes as a singular team and not a single universe team.
Oh, right. Like the Guardians of the Multiverse.
Yes, which I think could have actually helped them connect it better to what the film was trying to do if it was Professor X from the X-Men universe and maybe like Captain Carter from the What If universe and all of that, as opposed to like these all people, they all come from this one single universe, and then they're going to try to lecture Doctor Strange on the rules of the multiverse.
Yeah. And then Wanda tears through the What If team.
Yeah.
Ooh.
At least then you would have more connection to it.
Yeah.
To see that happen. It would actually be very bold to kill off the version that we actually know and care about.
Yeah.
Well, my final thoughts are this. I'm remiss to say that my favorite, my favorite character in the MCU since his debut in 2016, and one of my favorite characters in the comics for many years, isn't a very mid-tier film. I was very ready for this to be his Winter Soldier or his Ragnarok, because I think that while his first film I think is a little bit underappreciated, it is still kind of that sort of origin film that falls in the same category as Thor and Captain America. It doesn't jump right out at everyone like Iron Man 1 did, and it does need more development the way that Cap and Thor did before audiences finally were like, yes, I get these characters and I want to see more of them. Mm-hmm. And this was not as much as I loved what Doctor Strange himself did, it's too far distracted by the greatest story that's being told. So I know there's a chance for this character to become the next big Marvel character because audiences really did latch onto him in Ragnarok and his Avengers and Spider-Man appearances. So he's got a shot, but he needs a better solo film, and I hope that his next solo film is the one. His next solo film, it damn well better be Ragnarok.
Well, I hear Benedict Cumberbatch has stated that he's down to play the character for as long as possible at this point. He's nowhere tired of playing him, so hopefully he'll get that chance soon.
That's a good thing.
And not just be one of those characters that it's like, all right, his trilogy's over. He's out of the franchise. Clea is now going to be the Sorcerer Supreme.
Oh, no, thank you. Not yet.
Not yet. We need our Ragnarok.
Benedict Cumberbatch is amazing. Like, he also does not get enough praise as I feel like he deserves with this character. Like, he is my favorite current MCU performance that is going on, and it's a delight every single time, even in a mid-tier movie like this. But it's not mid-tier because of Doctor and his performance. Sure, just giant white Vision-sized plot holes.
Yep. In a few years, maybe we'll get the inside scoop as to why this film had the production problems that it did, the way we have with some of the others. But until then, we just gotta live with what it is. And that brings us to trivia. So, Jalen and Travis, you two are tied at 4 points for first place.
Woo!
This could be the moment where someone pulls ahead. Either someone's pulling ahead or we're staying tied.
We're staying tied. So, still counts.
So here we go. Danny Elfman scored Multiverse of Madness, marking his 4th superhero score for Sam Raimi, but it also marks his 2nd time scoring for the MCU. What other MCU title did Danny Elfman score? Is it A, The Incredible Hulk, B, Thor, The Dark World, C, Avengers, Age of Ultron, or D, Ant-Man?
Out of those, I don't know the actual answer here, but I'm going to guess Ant-Man, because out of those selections, I feel like no, because the person who did Ant-Man also did The Incredibles, and that was not Danny Elfman. Ooh. Do you have any guesses, Jalen? I'm stumped right now.
The only one I can think of is Avengers. I'm gonna go with Avengers: Age of Ultron.
So the options were Hulk, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, and what?
Thor: The Dark World.
I'm also going to go with Age of Ultron here because The Incredible Hulk and I literally just forgot what the other one again. Thor: The Dark World. Those don't feel Danny Elfman to me. Ant-Man is the only one that feels Danny Elfman, but I know that wasn't him. So Age of Ultron. And at least then me and Jalen can either tie or both still be in the lead. We can just stay where we're at this point.
That's true. Let's just stay where we're at. Yeah.
Whether we're right or wrong, we're gonna stay.
Still gonna be in first. How you like that?
Rise and fall together. Well, the good news is you are still tied.
Yes.
The better news is you both get a point because it was Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Right. We're even more in first place. I love that. Yeah. We've gone from first to even more in first.
If I didn't know, I would have guessed Ant-Man because it is a very Danny Elfman score there with Ant-Man. And the reason
I'm glad I saved myself by remembering the person who did The Incredibles also did Ant-Man theme and all that.
Did Giacchino do Ant-Man? I didn't know he did Ant-Man. Oh, wow.
Let me look it up real quick.
I thought that might have been somebody else.
I swear it was The Incredibles and Ant-Man because, like, I could be... Am I wrong?
Because no, I know it's not. Giacchino did not do Ant-Man. It was Christoph Beck.
Oh, okay.
I guess I was wrong.
I know Giacchino did Doctor Strange, or the first.
Giacchino did. He did the first Doctor Strange and No Way Home. I think he also did Homecoming.
I think he's done all the Tom Holland Spider-Mans.
And if I'm being perfectly honest here, he should have done Doctor Strange too, because Elfman's score was okay, but that first movie I think Doctor Strange has one of the most recognizable themes of any of the heroes at this point.
Yeah,
very trippy.
I miss superheroes with recognizable theme songs. That's an art that needs to come back.
So that wraps us up for episode 45 of the Sunday Matinee. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Probably the last time we're going to be touching on Marvel until Thor or possibly Miss Marvel if that ends first. But for next week, we currently have planned a look back at the 2010 masterpiece of a film, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Missed the 10th anniversary for that due to a certain virus that had been raging across the world. So we're going to look at it now this year. So, Jalen, Travis, thank you for joining me on this journey through the multiverse. And to everyone else out there, have fun at the movies and take care.